right, welcome everyone to this year's chat conference. Okay, so I just want to say thank you so much for taking time. If you're a panelist who's here with us today, really look forward to what you have to share. And if you are a guest coming to try to find out a little bit of what you can do to help boost your mental well-being, then very, very big welcome to you from us in Singapore, India, as well as Nigeria. All of us, we've prepared, for several weeks to be able to present today's content to you. So we really hope that we can all walk away with something that's not only interesting but practical, something that you can do to boost your own mental well-being. So without any further ado, I'll hand the time over to Tanisha, who will be introducing the event to you. Tanisha, please.
Thank you, Gwen. Keen participants, ladies and gentlemen, but above all, experienced experts, friends and colleagues. This is a very important day to all of us, personally and professionally. This is the day on which we change when we translate talk into action, commitment. To really serve all those whom we know, they are as important as anyone else who is close to us and dear to us, but who are as important as anyone else. In the West, mental health has always been a point of concern since long but fairly ignored. Now, the eastern part of the world is greatly catching up and putting mental health back in spotlight. The pain you can see, you can touch, that is the most difficult to heal for family, friends, and above all, the persons affected. The main goal of this conference is not to start a conversation. So many of you have spent decades waging long and lonely battles to be heard. Instead, it's about elevating that conversation to an international level and bringing mental illness out of the shadows. We want to let people living with mental health changes know that they're not alone. And we've got to be making sure that we are committed to support those fellow citizens, because struggling with a mental illness or caring for someone who does can be isolating. And I think everybody here who's experienced the issue is one way or another understands that. It begins to feel as if not only are you alone, but that you shouldn't burden others with the challenge and the darkness. On the eve of the World Mental Health Day 2021, we realized that all of the successful steps we've taken so far have involved collaboration, and I urge all of you to commit to greater openness and coordination so we can make this global change together. Distinguished experts, participants, and partakers, it is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of the conference organizer, Chatty Caterpillar, and the supporting partners, Art for Good, Adolescent Health Hub, and the Rainbow Cause Society. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to all experts and especially Mr. Priyank Chaturvedi for accepting the invitation and agreeing to give the keynote for today. Firstly, I invite Ms. Gwendolyn Thong to give an introduction of the conference and the session scheduled for today. Gwendolyn is the founder of the Chatty Caterpillar and holds a Master in Public Policy from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, where she has recently graduated in June 2021. As a scholar, she has published multiple articles on public health and mental wellness. Additionally, she has accumulated 8 years of working experience as a history and social studies teacher in Singapore. During her time in NUS and NIE, she completed modules on psychology, FASS, NUS, educational psychology, NIE, NTU, global health policies and issues with a focus on mental health policies, LKY, SPP, NUS, psychological first aid, Johns Hopkins University, and health behavioral change from evidence to action, Yale University. Gwendolyn, your introductory remarks, please.
Thank you, Tanisha. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Chat Global Conference 2021. My name is Gwendolyn Thong, and I'm the founder of Chatty Caterpillar and originator of the Chat Framework for Mental Wellness. With the tsunami of mental illness hitting the world's population since the start of the pandemic, it is now of paramount importance for us to design a solution that can be implemented globally with exponential results. For me, the solution is better mental health literacy. Before I founded Chatty Caterpillar, I was a researcher at NUS, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, where I was persistently asking the question, how can public policy improve the lives of disadvantaged children? You see, I was an educator for 6 years before enrolling into the school and have seen firsthand the kinds of suffering and disadvantages that children from disadvantaged families face at school. It's not right for children from different backgrounds to compete in the same race and expect them to produce the same results. Without proper support, they will fail and they will be more demoralized than ever. There has to be a way to either uplift the children from lower income families or change the nature of the race so that there can be more winners. As I explored the various policy options, I chanced upon mental health literacy as a tool to even up the playing field. It motivates children who start off from a disadvantaged background to work harder as their focus shifts away from their inherent socio-economic deficiencies to what they know that they can achieve if they learn to just manage their emotions better. You see, the WHO defines mental health as the foundation for the well-being and effective functioning of individuals. It's much more than just the absence of mental disorders. It's also the ability to think, learn, and understand one's emotions and the reactions of others. Mental health is a state of balance, both within and with the environment. And mental health education enhances our ability to think, learn, and understand our emotions and that of others, making it possible to transcend certain socioeconomic barriers and achieve our very best. And in the case of people from low-income families, that would be upward social mobility. This applies more than ever, not only to children, but to the rest of us adults now, living in a world with increasing socioeconomic inequalities. Sometimes we may feel disadvantaged. We may even feel like failures in life. But concurrently, let us remember that we can also be empowered to develop a winning script for our lives through mental health literacy. We can learn to see the beauty in ourselves and in our environments, even as we are working towards becoming more, achieving more, and experiencing more from our lives. This is where the analogy of a caterpillar comes in. A caterpillar is destined to become one of the most beautiful flying creatures on earth. Yet, it begins as a crawling and vulnerable insect, trying hard to survive in this perilous world. I'm sure that many of us have embodied this description over the past 2 years. We have felt like we could do so much more, but the pandemic has slowed us down or even forced us to take a few steps back. The CHAT methodology will come in useful to support you on this journey. CHAT is an acronym for confidence, happiness, affection, and tenacity. The battle within yourself leads to confidence. Making peace with your environment leads to happiness. Getting along well with others leads to affection. And being able to achieve your life goals leads to tenacity. At Chatty Caterpillar, we believe that mental health literacy should be a right, just like other forms of education. It should be made accessible and practiced daily. So, the CHAT methodology has become a useful heuristic to help us, and hopefully to help all of you here today, make sense of what is going on internally at any point of your life. It guides you through a simple 4-step process to evaluate what is causing you distress right now. Obviously, more often than not, struggles with life goals are much harder to bear when we associate our confidence to our success track record. If we learn to be confident, and respect our self-worth, regardless of what we have achieved in life, it will make us a lot more tenacious and less likely to give up. So as you can see, C, H, A, and T are levels that need to be built upon one another. As I'm reaching the end of this introduction, I'd like to draw your attention to today's distinguished panelists who will be building up the various levels sequentially. We hope that today's inaugural CHAT Global Conference will inspire you to begin your journey in mental health literacy. And I would like to leave you with a quote from Venus Williams, a professional tennis player with multiple Olympic gold medals. She says, "You have to believe in yourself. when no one else does. That makes you a winner right there. Last but not least, I would like to remind you that you can't take care of anyone unless you take care of yourself first. I hope that you'll take away something not only interesting, but practical from today's event, which can boost your knowledge of mental health literacy from now on. Hopefully, this will be the first of many such global gatherings that can promote mental wellness practices. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all a wonderful conference ahead.
Thanks, Gwen. Now I invite Mr. Priyank Chaturvedi to give the keynote address on the theme for today. Priyank has about 11 years of experience working in the Indian civil services. He's from the Indian Revenue Services and has dealt with issues relating to indirect taxation, having handled IT infrastructure, including information and cyber security for his department. In his assignment, he worked with and supervised a team of more than 300 people. He was also responsible for setting up the IT infrastructure for the rollout of the GST tax regimen pan-India. He has worked in various projects dealing with Government of India's initiatives on customs side, such as ease of doing business, digital India, etc. Currently, he is working as Deputy Secretary in Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, Government of India. He has an engineering degree in electrical and electronics and a master's in public administration from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. Priyank, the keynote address, please.
Tanisha, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I am having some issues with the audio, so I'll just try my best. Just let me know if I'm not audible, right?
Sure.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I feel privileged to be a part of this extremely important event on a very pertinent issue. Given the times we are living in, with an ever-increasing number of people suffering from stress, depression, and suicidal tendencies, I think it is critical that we appreciate the importance of mental well-being and discuss and analyze approaches to dealing with the mental health concerns. Let me start by sharing a few examples with you. These are real-life stories of people I have known for quite some time now. The first one is of a friend I have known for the past 11 years. She's a smart, confident, and enthusiastic person with an optimistic perspective of life. But as it happens, you drift apart in your jobs. That's what happened to us as well. Recently, when we got in touch again, I came to know she had issues in her marriage and was contemplating divorce. Professionally, she had the same confident persona. Personally, she was a completely different person. The worst part was she hadn't been able to talk about these things with anyone and had kept it to herself. It suddenly hit me. When she needed someone to talk to, I wasn't there. The second example is of a person I met on the social media, someone from a wealthy family with a textile business, very well educated, again, a smart, confident person doing great as an interior designer and a vlogger. Then, as it happens at times with businesses, it went downhill. And COVID made the matters worse. He always had some or the other physical illness, but now he suffered from mental illness as well. He attempted suicide multiple times, went into a shell, stopped talking to people and eating. He doesn't want to join his family business, but feels pressurized to do so. He didn't have the level of family support he required. On the contrary, he had multiple issues with his father and brother. What complicated matters was that his friends slowly started deserting him. He would call up and request them to talk to him, but no one wanted to waste their time on his rantings. Talking to him, I realized all he wanted was someone to hear him out, not preach, just listen to him. He would make lots of friends on social media just to talk to them about random things that would keep his mind off his issues. Last is an example of a person I know inside out, myself. No example is better than oneself. The same is true here as well. I had some rough years after my school education, struggling as I did to get into a college. As if that wasn't enough, I had another rough patch after I graduated from college, I wasn't getting a job. To make matters complicated, my younger sister landed a job while she was in her last year of college. With all the talk of the 21st century, it is still a patriarchal world with set stereotypes. The things you get to hear when your sister gets a job before you are unimaginable, to say the least. From being suggested that I wasn't as smart or intelligent as my sister, to being told I had a bad personality and needed to be as outgoing and extrovert as my sister for being successful in life, I had pretty much heard everything. Things didn't change much as I started preparing for the civil services, with people advising me against it and telling me I was wasting my time. I persisted nonetheless. I never did allow the question, what if? Equally critical was the fact I had my family supporting me right through. Nevertheless, those years were really tough. These are not some random examples. All of us have either faced mental health issues of some sort at some point in our lives or know someone who has or does. Mental illness is a more common issue than is imagined. In fact, it wouldn't be out of place to suggest that it is a silent killer and hence more dangerous than physical illnesses. As per WHO, half of all mental health conditions starts by the age of 14. Poor mental health during adolescence has an impact on educational achievements and increases the risk of alcohol and substance abuse and violent behavior as well. As we all know, suicide is a leading cause of death in young people. And yet, for some strange reasons, it is considered to be a taboo to discuss mental illness. What do we attribute this characteristic to? The answer is a negative perception attached to the issue, the stigma of it. The narrative that is built is that since it can't be seen, mental illness is not real, but imaginary. It's an excuse put forth by an unsuccessful person for his failures. Being judgmental individuals that we are, and society, we consider people facing mental illnesses as weak, an embarrassment, and inferior to us. No wonder then that people fighting mental illness are scared to ask for help. Most cases therefore go undetected and untreated. In recent times, we have seen an exponential rise in the number of cases of people suffering from mental illness. The changing lifestyles, maddening competition, pressure of being the best, the way in which such success is being defined, all of these leads to an enormous amount of stress in a person. The advent and expense of technology, in particular social media, has made the situation worse by forcing people to look a certain way, lead a certain lifestyle, and have an incessant desire to be in the limelight always. Needless to say, as a consequence of this, a large number of people, particularly the kids and the youth, are pushed towards higher level of stress, anxiety, and depression. You may be a celebrity or a common man, woman or man, kid, youth or adult, in school, college, or a professional. Mental illness does not differentiate. And yet, a deeper analysis, discussion, and deliberation revolving around mental health issues have been few and far in between. Going back to the examples I shared earlier, if we were to name a few identifiers from the realm of mental health, we can say confidence, mental strength, support ecosystem, perspective of life, to list a few. Why are these important? It is because they define our response to mental illness and the impact it would have on our lives. It is important to understand that the responsibility of mental well-being of an individual starts with them, but at times, what is required is a strong support ecosystem in the form of family, friends, peers. And that is exactly what the chat framework aims to achieve. It intends to build a strong and resilient mind to cope with mental health issues in one's life, but at the same time, it also appreciates the necessity of a support structure in ensuring the overall mental and emotional well-being of the person. Support structure in the form of parents and teachers helps not just in developing mental resilience from an early age, but also in detecting early signs of any ailment. The governments, civil societies, and other agencies should aim at equipping the individuals to look after their mental health. But at the same time, it is imperative that the people are trained to become a supporting ecosystem for those around them dealing with mental health issues. something that is the aim of the chat framework. The chat methodology helps the organizations and individuals appreciate the importance of mental well-being and the impact mental health issues can have not only on the concerned individual and his productivity, but also on his peers, colleagues, family, and friends. Equally importantly, however, what the methodology does is highlight the distinction that ought to be between achievement of life goals and happiness. It sends out the message that people need to be happy, content, and confident, irrespective of who they are or what they have achieved in life. Our mental and emotional well-being should not be hostage to our materialistic successes or to others' perceptions of us. As I near the end of my speech, allow me to be a bit cynical. Although we are celebrating the World Mental Health Day annually, personally, I think it is more a symbolic gesture than anything else. It has never got the same traction as, say, for example, a World Cancer Day, World Diabetes Day, to say a few. Relatively, yes, there has been a gradual increase in acknowledging the importance of mental health. People have started discussing the issue more openly today than ever before, but it's still a long and arduous journey ahead. Even though health encompasses both physical and mental well-being, yet for a long time now, the latter has not been adequately appreciated. The realization that mental health is our biggest asset is critical and need to be nurtured. If we don't have our mental health, we can't have anything. I will end by quoting from the message of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres from World Mental Health Day 2018. The 2030 agenda is clear. We must leave no one behind. The United Nations is committed to creating a world where by 2030, everyone, everywhere has someone to turn to in support of their mental health in a world free of stigma and discrimination. If we change our attitude to mental health, we change the world. It is time to act on mental health. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this, Priyank. Thank you all to the audience. Please see today's sessions in the form of a human caterpillar whose metamorphosis, that is journey to become a beautiful butterfly, depends on many characteristics. With each session, we aim to discuss and deliberate upon these important qualities that make humans achieve, progress, and evolve. Without delay, we will now begin with the scheduled session, starting with the first one. The first session signifies a confident caterpillar aimed at discussing on cultivating confidence in girls. We don't enter the world with it. No one has it all of the time. Talking about it won't help you again. It won't help you gain it. I'm referring to self-confidence. We women have particular difficulty developing self-confidence. We instinctively focus on everyone but ourselves. So taking the time for self-development doesn't come naturally to us. Girls often are encouraged to be passive and not too daring or confident. After all, we don't want to threaten all those guys out there. To discuss on this vital subject, we have with us Dr. Fatimah Odusote. Fatimah Odusote is an astute medical doctor with 6-year work experience in the field of public health in Nigeria. Her work has spanned varying national, community, and school projects in the public sector, startup, and non-governmental organizations. She also has Masters in Public Administration from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. She has worked briefly as a student researcher and graduate assistant researcher at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. She is the founder and currently the executive director of the Center of Adolescent Health and Social Development, Adolescent Health Hub, a not-for-profit organization focused on improving the well-being of adolescents in Nigeria. Under her leadership and coordination, the organization has carried out a couple of schools and community interventions for adolescents and relevant stakeholders in hard-to-reach communities in Abuja and Lagos State in Nigeria. The organization has also conducted several online advocacy and sensitization to address significant health issues bothering the health of adolescents with the hope of improving health outcomes in this age group. We also have with us Ms. Saumya Sharan. Saumya is a practicing clinical psychologist with an MPhil in clinical psychology, registered under the Rehabilitation Council of India. She has rich clinical experience, which includes conducting psychometric assessments and therapeutic intervention for individuals of all age groups, and has worked towards addressing their social, emotional, and behavioral needs. She's also a certified practitioner of social focused brief therapy. After having successfully completed an internationally accredited training course for the same, she is well versed with a range of assessment tools along with efficient skills at practicing psychotherapeutic interventions for varying age groups. She has conducted numerous interactive workshops at the school, organizational, and at the community level for the holistic development of children and adults in the community. I now invite our panelists to give their theme addresses. Dr. Fatima, your address, please.
Okay, let me first say thank you very much for this opportunity to be amidst. I think I'm the farthest here when it comes to location in Africa. So I want to say thank you very much for this opportunity, and I really appreciate. And for me, I think this topic is very relevant and it's something I'm really passionate about simply because I've had a lived experience when it comes to confidence, self-esteem, and all of that. And coming from Africa also, we have issues with social cultural beliefs. We have issues with religious beliefs that tend to put girls at the back seat. We believe, I don't want to go too much because I have some of this on my slides, so it will be like I'm just repeating myself. So for me, it's about, I'm not going to strictly just restrict to talking about health. I'll come from the aspect of public health, whereby, because for public health, you are not just restricting to, okay, this individual has a problem. We are not just looking to the health aspects, we are looking at the social, cultural, economic factors and how you can help improve that person's livelihood. So that is the aspect and the point I'll be speaking from today. So I want to say thank you very much again for this opportunity, and I look forward also to learning from other co-panelists. So thank you, and over to you, Tanisha.
Thank you. Saumya, your address, please.
Right. Thank you so much, Tanisha, and greetings to all the guests present. Thank you for having me here and giving me this opportunity. I've already been introduced, so I won't go much into that. But I'd just like to start with a quote that which says that the world is billions of years old and life is a product of nucleotide mutation and everything. But the world is also the stories we tell about it. And today I'd be talking about the stories of confidence, especially in girls. In my journey as a clinical psychologist, when I meet girls, especially young girls, I see a pattern of self-doubt that's almost pervasive. I don't think I deserve that promotion. Am I being unfair to my child as a working mother? Am I being a good wife? Do you really think I deserve to be the CEO of the company? These are statements that I generally hear in my therapy settings. Well, the statistics say that women are twice more likely than men to have low self-confidence. But the other part is we also have women like Sushmita Sen, the 1994 Miss Universe, who breaks the norms as a 40-plus actor and values conscience over fitting in. She's an entrepreneur and also navigates social media to drive conversations and change. Then again, we have Dr. Nimrat Kaur, who's a doctor and works at Doctors Without Borders and shares her account of working 12-hour-long shifts during the pandemic and staying in PPE kits and keeping herself mentally steady, hoping for vaccine, cure, and the new normal. Then again, we have Shalini Saraswati, who contracted a rare bacterial disease, had rickettsia when she was celebrating her 4th wedding anniversary. And waking up from a near-death situation, she had to eventually get her limbs amputated. But the quest for exercise options to stay healthy set her on a different path as a runner, and she won the national competitions in the 100-meter category of Paralympics in Japan. But what bothers me is that it's more the exception than the norm of the stories that I just told you. But how do we make something a norm? By normalizing it? What strikes me is how invested girls and women are in being liked, how they have been raised to believe that their being likable is very important, and that this likable trait is a specific thing. And that specific thing does not include showing anger, being aggressive, being too loud, disagreeing, or sometimes being too ambitious. We spend too much time teaching girls to worry about what other people will think of them. But the reverse is sometimes not the case. We spend too much time telling girls that they cannot be angry or aggressive or tough, which is bad enough. All over the world, there's so many articles and books telling women what to do, how to be, and not to be in order to attract or please. What happens is, if we do something over and over again, it becomes normal. If we see the same thing over and over again, it becomes normal. If only men are made leaders, then at some point, we will all think, even unconsciously, that a leader has to be a male. If we keep seeing only men as heads of corporations, it starts to seem natural that only men should be heads of corporations, but not women. Otherwise, they're being too ambitious or too loud or trying to be too successful. But what matters here is our attitude and our mindset. What if in raising children or in raising the younger lot, we focus on ability instead of gender? What if we focus on interest instead of gender? That all of us, women and men, must do better. Well, according to one of my favorite psychotherapists, there's only one variable that separates the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging from the people who really struggle for it. And that is that people who have a strong sense of love and belonging believe they're worthy of love and belonging. That's it. They believe they're worthy. And that's what has to become a part of the story that we tell about young girls, their confidence levels, and women, that they're worthy of it. This is the one thing that will keep us out of the connection with the fear that we're not worthy of connection. Everyone looks at the world differently. Two people can have the same experience, yet have very different interpretations of what happened. What matters is the core belief that are deeply held beliefs influencing how we interpret our experiences. Much of my work and time as a psychologist goes into helping people identify these faulty beliefs and replacing them with healthier ones, because it's a core belief that can color our perceptions of the world and ourselves. So it's always important to understand that the story that we sometimes tell about women, which may be limited, are not facts, but just opinions. And only if we added more to that narrative, more examples, more stories, we will widen that narrative and start replacing these faulty beliefs with healthier ones. What is also important is how we tell our story. Writing a story about your life can help you find meaning and value in your experiences. It always allows you to organize your thoughts and use them to grow. So always remember that being a woman, there's so many different aspects we need to attach to the story that we tell about ourselves and fellow women and the confidence that they are worthy of having to move forward. Keep reminding yourself of your own achievements at different points. And we will remember that it's the story that needs to widen. It's the core belief that needs to change. It is the narrative that needs to be worked on, and nothing else. What the world holds about us are just opinions, not facts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saumya. We are taking the liberty to put forward some audience questions to our panelists on the session theme. The first question is for you, Fatima. Nigerian, South African, and Kenyan women have always been at the forefront of diverse fields. What do these three nations do differently to cultivate confidence in their women folk when compared to the other sub-Saharan nations?
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, before I answer the question, are we still using the slides or?
Yes, you are still using the slides. So would you like to share?
Okay, so which should I do first, the questions or my slides?
I think we can do your slides first, then we do the questions later.
Okay, because that's, I wasn't expecting, okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So like I said, thanks once again for this opportunity. I feel very delighted and happy to be here. So I'll be talking about building confidence in girls with a focus on Africa, like what obtains here. And literally when we talk about building confidence in girls, you just want to talk about, okay, these are the symptoms, these are the things you should do. When it comes to the healthcare, we are just focusing on that. But I would want to, because being a public policy student now, we were taught something. When you have a problem, you look at the why, you ask why. So the why helps you to navigate, it helps you to bring out strategies that you use to ensure the problem is tackled at the root cause. So that is what I will be doing today. I'm not just, okay, you'll be thinking, medical doctor, okay, we are going to be hearing about drugs and all of that. No, this is not what you are going to hear today. So let me just move on without wasting time. And I would like to start with this quote, which I really love. The best accessory a girl can wear is confidence. And I'm sure we all agree with that very beautiful quote. So the outline I'll be using, I'll be talking about the why, like I said, the general beliefs and practices regarding girls in Africa generally, then what happens also during adolescence that affects our girls in terms of being very confident and having high self-esteem. Then what are the results, signs of lack of confidence, and then way forward, what do we do after we've identified these problems? So yes, this is a map of Africa. And then, so one of the most common beliefs that we have, I don't know whether it also obtains in other parts of the world, is the fact that girls or females have lesser genetic makeup when it comes to males. If they tell you, oh, they have this number of ribs when it compared to their male counterparts, which is not true. And then also girls also face the traditional pressure to fulfill traditional roles. That is, they tell you girls belong to the kitchen. It's a very common belief. And that gradually erodes their self-confidence. Then we have something that is very prevalent in Africa, female genital mutilation. As early as they're very young, they do this just to tell you, okay, they don't want them to be promiscuous. So they venture into female genital mutilation for girls. And it's very common in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, giving an example now, coming home now to Nigeria, Nigeria has the third highest absolute number of girls, women that have undergone female genital mutilation in the world. So that is quite shocking, right? And then also going further, we also have cultural and religious beliefs that also tend to relegate females to the background. They tell you you can't talk in public, you just should be in the house, cooking, taking care of the kids, and all of that. That's what they tell you. And this is very also prevalent in different parts of Africa, like I stated earlier. Then also is another thing that is quite maybe embarrassing or disheartening. Girls are treated as sex commodities. They are treated as sex commodities. And also, when it comes to education, when it comes to access to education, males are preferred over females when it comes to access to education. And you agree with me, that also is a factor that really affects the confidence of girls. As a matter of fact, coming from UNESCO, as high as 49 million girls are out of school when it comes to primary and secondary school education in sub-Saharan Africa. And then also the fact, when it also comes to, I skipped something, talking about unwanted pregnancy. So for instance, in Africa, once a girl gets pregnant, that's something that they really discriminate against and that really affects a girl's self-esteem or confidence. Then moving from where we talk about cultural beliefs, social beliefs, sociocultural beliefs, there comes the challenges of adolescence. Yes, giving an example, I'm already battling with a lot of pressures from within my society, from my culture telling me, okay, you can't talk in public, you just have to be cooking, you can't go to school. Then I find myself menstruating, I find myself going through a lot of body changes, and I'm wondering what is going on. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to talk to. I'm just by myself. Like, what is going on? You don't even understand anything. You are just there, like, okay, just suddenly I'm menstruating. Is it a form of ailment? You don't know. You don't have somebody to talk to. The mothers, at times, they are secretive about it. You can't even, most times you can't even talk to maybe your father or the male counterparts in the society. So that also adds to the burden of what girls go through. And the picture you're seeing on the left is not just conjured. It's one of the pictures from the interventions we did back in Nigeria here. And that day, I remember vividly, we were asking the girls, okay, what do you understand by menstruation? They couldn't even talk at all. The funniest thing is we had males there. The males were the ones telling to us, oh, this is what menstruation is. The girls couldn't talk at all. They were so shy. They were so embarrassed. They couldn't say anything. So imagine that kind of thing going on to girls. Then also, so because of that, they can't even readily access, even when it goes to healthcare facilities, it's not even readily available in the first place. And where they are available, some of the healthcare workers are not so friendly. Like, what are you doing here? They ask you questions and they want to ensure that your parents know about it, that you are here. They want to ensure that the parents know about what you are doing here. Then also we have issues with sexual assault. It's quite high in Africa. It is high. Yeah, we've made some progress over time, but it's still very high. It's quite unfortunate in schools, they just rape and all of that, what have you. So I wouldn't go into details. Then we have issues with early marriage and teenage pregnancy, extremely high. We have like 40% married before age of 18 in Africa. And we all know what that means. It deprives you of a lot of things. A lot of things. So adding when you now add these two together, sociocultural factors, the issues with adolescence together is huge. It's cumbersome for just one girl to carry. And then what happens? See the girl, she's looking away. What happens? There's gradual erosion of your self-esteem. And that lasts several years. Some girls can't even overcome it forever. They are damaged forever. Because maybe after the call, you could just type what's female genital mutilation, what it means. That alone, if a girl should go through that alone, in fact, it devastates you psychologically, your morale, everything is devastated because of what they do during female genital mutilation. So what are the signs of lack of confidence? We have a lot of them. low self-esteem, inferiority complex. You can't even talk in public. When you see males, you feel, oh, they are, that's a fact that, okay, they are the head, you can't say anything, you're so shy, inferiority complex affects you, then you have negative self-talk, like, why, what am I even doing? Am I worthy? Can I even do these things? Can I be somebody in life? It really affects. And then you have post-school performance, definitely. It's a process. It starts from somewhere. It doesn't just start like that. So when you have a girl that has gone through that within her community, where she has been backlash, a lot of negatives have been done to her in school, it affects her performance in school. She can't even talk, or a girl that maybe she just, first time she had her menstruation was in school and she was so embarrassed. She won't even be able to talk again in school. It affects that. And then we have absence of assertiveness, because you feel you have low self-esteem. You think, oh, I'm not so worthy. You can't even assert yourself to a guy that tries to molest you, that tries to talk you down. And then you have anxiety and emotional tumor. That is where now we have the psychological coming to play. You have anxiety, you can't even talk in public, you are so shy to, to do a lot of things. And I remember some of these things affected me when I was growing up, because I'm from a Muslim home, and some of it erroneous belief in quote is that a girl cannot talk where boys are, you can't do some things. So, and you're growing up, you need to talk, you need to speak, you need to talk to people, you ask questions in class, you can't even talk. Even to construct a simple sentence is challenging, So that anxiety is there, you feel struggling alone, then depression comes in with all its own, and depression alone is another ball game with all symptoms and all of that. Then we have other things as well that come from depression. Other things can set in. You can have substance abuse, like one of the speakers stated earlier. Suicide can come in because you feel, what am I even doing? What am I doing here? Let me just end it all. Then school dropout, definitely, because you're not performing. We feel, okay, let me just be by myself. What am I doing in school? Nothing. Then reduce productivity. Definitely when you have depression, you drop out of school. How can you be productive? You don't even have what it takes, the skills, you don't have the expertise it takes to earn. Then low economic attainment, and then it's like a vicious cycle. And these things are there. It's not as if they are just in books. They are evident in our society, especially in Africa. They are so evident. Though they are more for instance, if I should give an example from Nigeria, it's more in some regions of Nigeria than other when it comes to girls being relegated to the background. It's more in, maybe northern part than other parts of the country. So it is regional for some, and in some African countries is better than other places. Then also, so what is our goal really? We want to nip it in the bud right from the early stage. We don't even want our girls at all to have low self-esteem right from the onset, right from day one. So what do we do? Reorientation, very important. You can't fix the problem from the top, you start from down. So reorientation here means that you are addressing the cultural myth, you are addressing the religious myth that, okay, girls, yeah, we agree, we should be responsible, take care of our kids, but then they shouldn't stop us from aspiring to do great things. So we need to reorientate right from the community, from the very, very grassroots level, to say that, no, fine, yes, we agree with this, but this is how it should be. Girls are also complete human beings. They are not weaklings. So that is very important. Then parents, guardians, they have huge roles to play. They are the first role model. No doubt, they are the first role model. So what are you portraying to your girl? Are you also telling her subconsciously that you won't amount to nothing? No, you end up in your husband's house. Is that what you tell her? So we need to also, parents need to support to boost the confidence of their girls right from the onset. We have parents that even, right, when they have kids, when the child is still pregnant with a baby, they start talking positively. That positive affirmation, telling them, no, you can do this, you can achieve, this is doable, you are smart, you are awesome, you are amazing. So saying subconsciously, it helps. Psychologically, it's there. So, and you can't compare a girl that grows up in that kind of positive, affirmative environment to that where negative statements are always said, like, so you can't compare. So that's very important. Then the community, they say it takes a village to raise a confident girl. Yeah, I changed the phrase, but yeah, so it takes a village to raise a confident girl. So we take parents, guardians, we take the community members. It takes the relevant stakeholder within the community to raise a girl. So we need to work together to ensure girls turn out right. The schools also very vital. What are we telling? Are they just going there to school? And when you see a girl being harassed, when you see a girl being embarrassed, what do? Do you rise up to the occasion? Do you try to challenge, to tell her, no, this is how it should be? You shouldn't talk to a girl like that. What should we do? Schools also have huge roles to play in empowering girls, in inculcating essential things into the curriculum that will help boost their morale. You are engaging them to, okay, take debates. You're not doing debates that will say, oh, boys are better than girls. What's that? Then healthcare, then it comes to healthcare. Fine, I highlighted some signs now when it comes to depression and, so when that sets in for a girl, you can't just leave her. So then we now need help or professionals, like we have our psychologists here, to help tackle that. And in tackling it, you also have to work with non-health actors. So that at times, that's the mistake we make. We feel, no, it's just depression. Yeah, we are taking drugs, we are doing this. No, it goes, what if these things that I mentioned earlier, the underlying causes, you need to address. If you don't address, it keeps coming back. It keeps coming like a recalcitrant problem.
Dr. Fatimah.
So then doing, okay, that are doing a lot. I've stopped. Oh, okay. Can you still hear me? Okay, so I'll just rush through. Then laws are important. Our government, what are they doing? So in some parts of Africa, and that's in a way, I'll try to answer some of the question that Tanisha posed to me. She mentioned South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. So that is where laws come into play. They are not just on books, we're enforcing laws that would abrogate some barbaric things like female genital mutilation. We are implementing policies that are pro-girl, that champion the cause of girls. So that is very important. So that is why in some of these countries like South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, they've done some of the health education as being very vital. They took it seriously. They really worked on that. And then lastly, also collaboration, like what we are doing. We are collaborating internationally. We're not just saying, so by collaboration, you learn lessons, like learning from, okay, what has obtained in that country? We can incorporate, you can adapt, you can adopt. That is what it helps to do. Then lastly, finally, I will end with this quote for every girl out there. Know that you can become strong and powerful and beautiful. So, so with that, I think I've come to the end of my slides.
Dr. Fatimah, if you could answer the question.
Okay.
Your internet connection, I think it is unstable.
So yeah, you talked about in South Africa, they have, hello, can you hear me? Women have done a lot of things. Yeah, why this is not absolutely true? In a way, it's true, but it's not absolutely true because we still have pockets of inequality. We have pockets of discrimination still in these countries. And we have examples in Nigeria as well. But what makes them perhaps stand out is number one, the government. When you have good leaders, it really goes a long way. At some point, they had leaders that were really committed to education. And when a girl has access to education, we know what it means. In Nigeria, we had, his name is Fatimah Odusote, that invested in free primary education in the Western region then, Same thing also happened in Kenya. Then also South Africa. Then also after the apartheid, we had movements, we had reforms. Women themselves leading protests to say, no, this must end. Women themselves saying we need better representation at the legislative level. We need better representation and labor participation. So we had that. Those two things were there. Then innovation, diffusion of technology also really helped in some of this country, like Kenya. Kenya is the number one country in Africa when it comes to education. They also is a very fertile ground also when it comes to innovation, technology, and all of that. So in some, those are the things that really help some of the women in these countries, but we still have pockets of problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. The second question is for you, Saumya. Culturally, thinness has long been associated with virtue, and bulkiness has been associated with decadence and failure. What is your definition of a dad girl or boss girl?
Right. Thank you for the question, Tanisha. I think before I start with a very prescribed answer, I would like to say that the standards of beauty have been ever changing, whether it's in context to a particular culture, it's in context to, a particular time in history or at present. And well, now a lot of articles say that they've become very inclusive. I have a certain problem with that. Why the word inclusive to be associated with beauty? Isn't beauty in itself a concept that encompasses all? I also feel that it's how we train the eyes to understand the concept of beauty. Whether we train it to see beauty from a standard of thinness or bulkiness or a particular way of hair or a particular way of skin, or we just train the eyes to look at beauty in terms of the confidence, the virtue, and the grace with which any man or woman is comfortable in their own skin in their present time. So I think the answer lies in the question itself, what my idea of a boss girl. So being your own boss, I think just have your own, I think you don't need to bow down to any standards of beauty, or we don't owe it to anyone to accept any standards of beauty, whether thin or not, bulky or not, having a particular hair type or not. It's who you are and it's what you become. So be your own boss, as the question implies. And when you are your own boss, you make your own standards. You train yourself, you train your own eyes to see the concept of beauty. And if people may agree with it, may not agree with it, but that's not something that we're looking at. What we're looking at is having our own set of beliefs, having our own set of standards about what makes me beautiful, what makes me feel beautiful at any given point of time, focused more on the interior and less on the exterior. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saumya. So due to paucity of time, we'll be taking the last question. I'll request for comments from you both. So many detestable incidents strip girls of their self-worth and self-confidence. How does one overcome and build up after that? Saumya, your thoughts first.
I think one of the things is it's very important to understand that the fact that there is a very clear relationship between an experience and how it shapes your core belief. And a core belief will ultimately have an impact on your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So once we understand and acknowledge that, the next step is to realize that it's a belief that can be changed. It's a belief that is based on opinions, mostly opinions of others and not facts. And when we are to look at self-confidence, when we are to look at self-worth, the first point is to believe that you're worthy of it in every possible way. Remind yourself always of your achievements. Always remind yourself of your strengths, of what you have brought into this world with your own unique self. And it's just, you are one of a kind with who you are. There won't be another you. There would be someone like you, very similar to you, but won't be another you. And I think, when the way you explain anything to yourself, any incident, any experience, just being mindful of how you do that explanation, what you say to yourself about that particular event, whether you're saying it in a more self-defeating way or whether you're saying it in a more understanding way, focused towards growth and focused towards moving forward. And I think last but not the least would be just being aware of, as I keep saying, the narrative, the story that we tell about ourselves as women, generally about girls, their confidence, their self-worth, what they think of themselves, and to keep widening that narrative, keep adding more and more richer stories, richer examples to that narrative. And you'll understand that sometimes it's dangerous to add just a single narrative or a very limited narrative to when we're talking about the confidence of a woman. What is really required is to widen that and let people know that there's much more to this than you know or you feel or you have an opinion on. So that's from me.
Thank you. Dr. Fatima, yours, please.
Okay, thanks. She has said a lot, so I'll just add a few points. She has covered nearly everything that one has to do. Well, for me, I would also say that identifying the root cause of the problem also helps at times. So in doing that, it is not compulsory, but in doing that, it also helps to undo some damages. And when you're doing it, we are doing it with the support of a professional, like a psychologist. You are, walking through what happened, and then through that support, it helps to boost your confidence back. That's one thing. Then another thing also is also looking for support group. When you've gone through some things in life and you have people that had similar experiences together within your circle, it really helps you to get over such damaging situations or experiences. So that's the two things I would just add to what she said, because she said a lot already.
Thank you. I'll request our panelists to give their brief concluding notes for this first session. Dr. Fatima, your concluding remarks, please.
Oh, okay. So we have to conclude. Well, I think in a nutshell, building confidence in girls goes beyond just saying it's a health issue, like I said earlier. It's about looking at the whys, identifying them and tackling them. And like I said, it takes not just a healthcare professional dumping your girls, like help us fix her. No, it goes beyond that. It takes the support of a family, because it starts from the family, from the community members, from the villagers, from policymakers, to ensure we build a confident girl. So we need to work together and ensure that we are not dealing with a damaged girl right from the onset, right from day one. What do you tell your girl? As a mother, what do you tell your girl? As a father, what do you tell your girl? How do you protect your girl enough when you see her in some situations that can damage her self-esteem for the rest of her life? So for me, that's my closing remark, working together to ensure we have a complete girl that we are proud of anytime, any day. Thanks.
Saumya, your concluding remarks.
Right. So I think to sum it all up, gender is a very important conversation. Confidence in women, confidence in girls is a very important conversation. So I think we've already working on the first step, which is creating a safe space to initiate dialogue on it and have conversations around it. So that is one. Keep having conversations, keep having dialogue around what do we do to make sure women and girls feel more worthy of being who they are. And I think it's also about just what do we say to little kids when we're raising them. It's not just what we say to the girls, it's also about what we say to the boys, because we want to create a world where there are happy girls and happy boys who are true to themselves and who are authentic enough to be in this world. And I think for that matter, our battle in this journey is not against the other gender, is not against men, but it's a battle to, I think, to navigate through all the evils or navigate through the different opinions, the stereotypes, the limiting beliefs that still remain in the society, overcome them, change the narrative, and change your storyline by adding more to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Well, the truth is out of the bag. No more excuses, no more wishful sighs as you think about that successful gymnast you met or the woman you read about who returned to medical school in her 60s. Right here, right now, you have the formula to develop your own confidence. So head for the laboratory and start creating, adding one ingredient at a time. Extremely grateful to Dr. Fatima and Saumya to have spare time for this pro bono event and for having shared their thoughts so candidly. Thank you, live participants. Without delay, we will now begin with our second scheduled session that manifests a happy caterpillar aimed at deliberating on stress management through identifying unmet needs. Can unmet social needs of any form impact an individual's overall health? Many research results show that the more unmet social and other needs someone has, the more barriers to self-care, worse health behaviors, and worse health outcomes they experience. It has also been confirmed that there exists a significant correlation between unmet needs and high levels of stress. To discuss on this important theme, we have with us Ms. Agata Stapelfeldt. Agata is the head curriculum designer at Chatty Caterpillar. She has been certified as a health coach, life coach, transformational life coach, and has a BSc Business Management from King's College London. She is the mother of 4 children and has lived, studied, and worked in Russia, the United Kingdom, and Switzerland. She now works and lives with her family in Singapore. She holds a certificate in non-verbal coaching, the basics of movement patterns from the International School of Non-Verbal Coaching, a certificate of integrative nutrition health coach from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and a certificate of transformational life coach from the Vector Rosta School in Belarus. We also have with us our very own Ms. Gwendolyn Thong. Gwendolyn Thong is the founder of Chatty Caterpillar and holds a Master in Public Policy from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, where she has recently graduated in June 2021. As a scholar, she has published multiple articles on public health and mental wellness. Additionally, she has accumulated 8 years of working experience as a history and social studies teacher in Singapore. During her time in NUS and NIE, she completed modules on psychology, FASS, NUS, educational psychology, NIE, NTU, global health policies issues with a focus on mental health policies, LKYSPP, NUS, psychological first aid, Johns Hopkins University, and health behavioral change from evidence to action, Yale University. I now invite our panelists to give their theme address. Agata, your theme address, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Agata Stapelfeldt, and I haven't spoken yet. So I just would like to introduce myself very briefly. and to say a little bit about happiness and responsibility, because so often we give the power over our happiness away to others. And like this, instead of happiness, we end up choosing misery and suffering. Choosing because no one takes the power away against our own will. So when we make others responsible for our happiness, we actually willingly give our power away. I have kind of self-assigned myself as an advocate for encouraging people to find or claim back their power over their happiness and lives, to take responsibility for their lives into their own hands, and creating happy and fulfilling lives. Let's be our own bosses, the bosses of our own lives, like Saumya said just recently. And today my partner, Gwendolyn from Chatty Caterpillar, and I are going to share one practice that can help people to do exactly that, to take our power back.
Yes, and before we start, I think I want to talk a little bit about the model that we use at Chatty Caterpillar. So I think earlier on, we've got Dr. Fatimah talking about public health. And some of us may not be familiar with what public health means. So I think we can define it first. Okay, so public health is essentially the science of preventing disease. It's the science of protecting and improving the health of not only the individual, but the community. And it's really about asking the question of why. Why are people falling sick? So one of the very common examples that is being used is, for instance, you know, on the topic of dental health, right? So why are people getting tooth decays? Okay, it's mostly because they are not using this very humble tool that I have right here today, a toothbrush. Okay, they are not looking after their dental health. And over time, the plaque accumulates and they will have to see a dentist to get their decayed tooth extracted. Okay, so it always follows this model, which I learned from Yale, which is we begin well, but over time, because we don't take care of our health, a disease develops and we need medical intervention. Okay, so the same thing goes for mental health, right? If we do not care for our mental health in the early days, eventually a disease will develop and we'll need medical intervention. So today, we're just going to share with you one out of many tools that we have available at Chatty Caterpillar, and I'm sure you can Google it online. But we're just going to share with you one tool that you can use, you know, as frequently as you brush your teeth, you know, almost on an everyday basis. And if you use this tool, it's going to help you maintain your wellness and reduce the chance of you developing a disease later on. And so let's just see where we are at. Okay, so we've completed the Confident Caterpillar segment. We were looking at the concept of worthiness. So thank you so much to Dr. Fatimah and Saumya for explaining that all of us are inherently worthy and we need to develop, you know, a resistance towards any narrative that tells us otherwise. Okay, so to me, the best offense is a strong, okay, how do you say that? The best defense is a strong offense. Okay, so if you are living in a society and you're coping with, you know, cultural factors that work against your self-confidence, the best way to defend yourself against the effects of those negative narratives, the stigma attached to being a woman. It sounds weird, right? Why would there be a stigma attached to being a woman? But basically certain discriminations against women, the best way to do it is to have a strong narrative, right? So every time you feel like your self-worth is being questioned, you go back to that narrative and say, no, I have made a decision for myself, okay, that I'm worthy. Okay, but even if we have a sense of recognition for our self-worth, this may not be enough because, as you know, if you really want to make an impact in society, you're going to have to go out there. You got to be in an external environment. But then how do you manage the stimuli from this environment, which may not often be very pleasant, right? Like if you go to work, you're going to have to cope with colleagues who may not agree with you. And even if you are a stay-at-home mom, okay, which is a really noble career, you have to cope with your children. Okay, so today, Agata and I, okay, we're going to share with you the second domain, which is happiness. And of course, I just want to have a reminder to everyone that, the person responsible for happiness, okay, no matter which country you come from or which background you come from, the person responsible for your own happiness is always yourself, okay? And as much as the community is there to support you, or if things get really serious and you need to see a professional, okay, like for example, my teeth hurts, I want to see a dentist. Okay, I sometimes fear seeing a dentist because I know it's going to be painful, but I still go. Because I know it's going to help me so much. Ultimately, if you can see the largest triangle here, is still the self. You need to take care of yourself, and you need to realize that you can care for yourself. You are a very capable caregiver. Okay, so at this point, we're going to lighten up the mood by sharing with you a video. And this is taken from the movie Despicable Me. Okay, and let's just see if you can identify with what Gru is saying.
A very happy birthday!
How come you're so fat?
Because my house is made of candy, and sometimes I eat instead of facing my problems.
Okay, so this video essentially talks about how sometimes when we feel a certain uncomfortable or unpleasant emotion, instead of finding out what is the root cause for the emotion, we turn to something that we are, that's easily accessible. Okay, so this is the trend of stress eating, right? Eating instead of addressing your feelings. All right, so this is another cartoon that says the same thing, right? Like, have you ever felt like this? There's a void in your body, okay? Something that feels like unsatisfied. And you try to feed yourself alcohol. Sometimes you try to eat junk food. And instead of feeling better, you feel worse. Okay, so if this is you, you are here. And we're going to give you the solution so you're at the right place. Okay, so of course, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it has something to do with connecting with the void. Why is this so important? Okay, it's very important because it helps us answer the really difficult question that is being asked. How are you? Right? I mean, we ask that to our children, we ask that to our loved ones, our colleagues, and others ask it to us. But it seems more like a formality than a question that people really are capable of answering, because you feel like, I don't want to waste that person's time. So if he asks me how I am, I'll just say, I'm fine, I'm all right. Okay, but after today's session, I hope that you have some words to actually describe exactly what you need, okay, so that the people around you will be able to support you in meeting your needs better. And secondly, of course, this is going to lead you the first step towards creating a life that you can be grateful for in 10 years' time, because you'll be able to find healthier ways to be happy. For instance, instead of stress eating, you'll be able to communicate to someone about your stress. And in the long term, you're going to have effects on your mental health and your physical health, such that, it will actually improve your quality of life by and large. And of course, for those of us here who are like myself, and I think many of us mothers, okay, or we are leaders, we are always found in a situation we have to support others, okay? But if we are supporting others out of our own agenda, that's not healthy. So we need to first meet our unmet needs, and only then can we pour out of a full cup and support others without our own agenda.
So let's just check in briefly. What are you feeling? You can just make a mental note of your feelings, your emotions, or sensations in your body, or you can share in the chat, whatever you prefer. Just become mindful. What are you feeling right now? Or you can also think, what are you feeling in general about your life? Is this feeling pleasant or not so pleasant? Maybe it's unpleasant, like totally unpleasant, something that I don't want to experience at all. So I will just leave you here with identified feeling, and we will move on. Thank you so much for your answers. Let's just talk a little bit about unmet needs first. And here I just want to say that, yeah, everyone has needs. Everyone has needs. And it doesn't matter whether we want to have needs or not. Sometimes these needs are unmet. And when we have these needs that are unmet, we can't really unneed them. We can't decide that something that we need is not required for us. So the only option that we have is to meet the need. But a lot of times, different aspects stand in the way of our needs being met, because most of us learn through our life experiences that having needs is not okay. We have to always be happy and satisfied and everything, because positivity mindset, positive vibes only, So nice, pleasant emotions, no needs, everyone should be satisfied. So even feeling unpleasant feelings is especially uncomfortable and undesirable. So what do we do? We end up ignoring our unpleasant feelings and emotions, and we negate our needs, which in turn leads our bodies to direct us towards meeting our needs in a less optimal way. It doesn't actually give us choice to choose how we're going to meet our needs. It just meets them however it finds suitable for it, So like eating junk food, we meet our need for warmth, love, and peace a lot of times, or we might latch onto someone to meet the need for attachment and certainty. And these responses are not necessarily healthy, but they help us to survive. They help us cope with this unmet need that we have. But in a way, this coping mechanism leads us to having even more unmet needs and unpleasant feelings, because it's not a long-term solution. Whatever is happening just automatically, just so that we don't feel anything unpleasant at this moment in time, very often it's not the most optimal solution. So what happens then? We don't want to feel at all, because we experience so many unpleasant feelings and emotions, and we end up shutting down our emotions, or we bottle them up. And then it leads to a lot of stress, which we are not aware where it's coming from. And then our responses might become even stronger and even more unpleasant. Like occasionally we might explode at someone, or have a physical symptom like a heart attack. And people think heart attack is from blood problems or like cholesterol and stuff, but actually the very cause of a heart attack is this tension that we have, this bottling up of emotions and feelings, not recognizing them, not meeting the needs in the first place. And then physical symptoms occur. So in a way, unmet needs lead to lots of stress, which was in the picture just before, and then to more unmet needs, and then more stress, and this is like a vicious cycle. So one simple way to start discovering our unmet needs is giving space to our unpleasant reactions. Let's look at this hot pot. If we touch this hot pot, what do we feel? We feel pain, right? Pain is not so pleasant, not pleasant at all. So, but is it good? Yes, it is. It is great that we feel pain, because we can remove our hand from a hot pot and not get burned completely. So, well, not completely like the whole body, but like the hand at least, right? So why, when we experience something like this, we feel that it's a good protective mechanism, but when we experience some emotional reactions like anger, jealousy, laziness, we would do everything to push it away, to not experience it. We will just say, no, I'm not such a person who is angry. I'm not a person who is lazy. I have to be different. I am better than this. But in a way, instead of judging what we're experiencing, what we're feeling, and our responses as well to these feelings, like, for example, hitting someone or screaming at someone or doing something else, like behaving in a certain way that we don't like, instead of judging ourselves for that, we need to just acknowledge, right, this is what's happening right now. And there is a reason for that. And the reason for that is that some of our needs are not met, because pleasant emotions and feelings and actions, when we say some nice words to other people, when we do some nice things to other people, when we support other people, when we feel joy, when we feel satisfaction in life, it usually means that our needs are being satisfied. But unpleasant emotions and feelings and behavior reactions is also very valuable to acknowledge, because this information tells us that something in our lives is not being satisfied, and usually these are the needs that we have. And instead of classifying emotions or anything that we do, whatever reactions that we have, as good or bad, we need to take these manifestations of ourselves as signals that will lead us towards a better response in the future, because we will ask ourselves, so what is this feeling trying to tell me? And then I will begin my exploration and I will find out what I need, and then I can make a choice to satisfy this need in a different way. And I mean, you see, if survival and existing is enough for us, then of course we don't need to explore, we don't need to do anything, change anything. If we are fine with our expressions and reactions, and we want to teach people a lesson by being very aggressive, yeah, I mean, we can't do anything. But if we want to thrive and truly live and be the best that you could be, or fulfill your full potential, then exploring our unpleasant reaction is what's going to take us further. Taking this matter into our own hands by becoming responsible for exploration of the reactions is what's going to help us to take responsibility for building our lives exactly as we want them to be.
And also, I think, we have to touch on a little bit of theory. Okay, so we are actually basing this self-help tool on Dr. William Glasser's basic needs. Okay, so Dr. William Glasser in 1965 founded this concept called choice theory. And choice theory tells us that all human issues occur whenever one or more of these 5 basic psychological needs are not met, and that individuals must be aware that they can only control their own behavior. Okay, so when someone chooses to change their own behavior rather than to change someone else's behavior, they will eventually be more successful at attaining their own goals and desires. So these are the 5 needs, okay? Love and belonging, power, fun, survival, and freedom. Okay, so how is this relevant to us during the pandemic? Okay, essentially, during the pandemic, our lives have changed, right? There are now things that we cannot do, which we used to be able to do. One of it would be travel, okay, freely. So for people who have a very strong freedom need, okay, they feel like they need to have the freedom to travel, that particular need is not being met. Okay, but fortunately, this need can still be met in an alternative way. For instance, that person can choose to go to new places it has not been to in the country that they live in. Okay, another one that is also quite common these days is a lack of love and belonging, because people are isolated from their loved ones because of lockdowns, right? So we cannot just accept that this is happening without understanding that it is a need. So if you are feeling lonely and isolated, you have to take the responsibility to reach out, right? If you cannot meet someone physically, maybe do try to arrange a virtual meeting. Okay, so the more astute you are to being aware of your emotions and making these tiny adjustments here and there to bring perhaps some fun into your life. For instance, like I know this period is really difficult for many of us, but I do try to create some fun and laughter in my family by introducing a board games day. So my son and I, we play board games once a week. When in the past, we actually used to really like to go out, but we can't. And the reason is because if we make some attempts to fill the cup, right, to do some self-care, to meet these 5 needs, this is going to bring us back to a state that is grounded and satisfied. And then we'll be able to make better decisions about our lives from that state. Yeah, so as I said, this is the target, right? The target, happiness is not about getting everything you want in life. Happiness is about meeting your basic needs. You need to be open-minded and explore various ways of meeting these needs, okay, so that you can go back to this state where you're centered, satisfied, and resourceful. All right, and basically, if you take a look at this diagram here, this is where we want to be, right? We want to be grounded, flexible, and able to self-regulate. If we are outside of this window of tolerance, we'll exhibit things like high energy, anger, hypervigilance, and chaos. And if we are below that line, we will become depressed and withdrawn. Okay, so over time, the aim, at least the aim that we want to share with you guys today, is for us to expand our window of tolerance so that in more, even in uncertain situations, you can still remain grounded and flexible. So Agata is going to share with you an exercise that you can do to expand your window of tolerance.
So this is an exercise that you can do by yourself. We have a longer version of this exercise on our Facebook page. We did a session on the 16th September. So if you go onto our Facebook page, Chaturvedi, you can find also a longer workshop on this topic and the full exercise. Now I'm just going to describe to you the process of exploring your reactions. So let's say you experience stress. Well, first you need to identify what exactly you feel, because stress is a very broad concept. So we need to identify, is it overwhelming? Is it helplessness? Is it hopelessness? What is it for you? How do you experience stress? So in order to identify that, you stop and breathe, you become aware of how you feel, what you feel, and you give it a name. And then you find it somewhere in your body, you give it space, you allow it to be there, instead of pushing it away and saying, no, 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 I don't want to feel you, you're bad. No, it's not bad, it's information, it's going to tell you something important. So accept it, it's here already. You can't unfeel it, right? Like if we have a feeling, we can't just say, no, I'm not feeling it. No, it's there. So the only thing that we can do, and it's what is going to actually serve us, is accept it. So I accept it. I'm saying to myself, you're here because you want to inform me about something. And then we explore, we ask questions. So why are you here? Why am I experiencing you? What do I need when I experience you? And this is the key question. And the answer is going to pop in your head and you'll be like, oh, I need this. But to help you identify what exactly you need, you might use the table that we just shared. So take a screenshot of this table and you can use it, because you can do that exercise not only by thinking, you can also write it down, write your answers down, do this exploration. So whenever you find out what exactly you need, you can actually make an intention to satisfy this need. And this is going to be your responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility to satisfy your need, or it's not no one else's responsibility to satisfy my need, right? Like I can talk from myself. And if I know what I need, I can actually, have a direction in front of me. So now I'm in point A and I know where I need to go, what point B is. It's much easier to actually get to point B when you know what it is. Because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? At the same time, taking responsibility for satisfying my needs doesn't mean that only I should be satisfying my need by myself and I can't ask others for support. I can, of course, ask others for support, but others are not obliged to support me, and I have to be aware of that as well. Asking for support means asking, and if people can, they will help. If someone can't help, I can ask someone else. There will be definitely someone who can help, but it's my responsibility to make sure that I get support that I need, and my need is being satisfied. Because if it's not, I'm going to continue experiencing these unpleasant feelings and emotions until this need is satisfied. We also need to be aware that needs constantly come up. It's not like we satisfy a need like for love and that's it. We are done, right? Because we need to always give love to ourselves regularly. The same as when we are hungry, right? Hunger is a need as well. So we need to satisfy this need constantly. Not constantly, regularly. So for every need, this is true. That's why experiencing unpleasant feelings like hunger, like I feel hungry, right? It's okay. We are used to feeling these physiological responses in our body and to act upon them and like do something about them. But yeah, the other responses, like emotional responses, are not so much welcomed, because we need to be good people, right? We need to be nice and friendly all the time. But in a way, we can allow ourselves to experience these unpleasant feelings, and we need to own them and acknowledge them and give them space and all the attention they deserve, so that we can satisfy the needs that are standing behind them. So let's check in again. And what am I feeling? This is like one of the most important practices for our lives, you know, to be aware of what we're feeling exactly at this moment, and so that we can really be aware of our feelings and emotions and our needs.
All right, so in the interest of time, I wanted to actually also remind you one last thing, okay, before we end our segment and get into the Q&A, which is that, you know, feelings, they need to be expressed, okay? So you cannot deny that they're there, neither should you bottle it up, because like a balloon, right? If you keep blowing into it, at some point it's gonna explode. That happens when you have your anger outbursts. And research has shown that during the pandemic, you know, everyone is getting a little bit more prone to anger outbursts. But maybe you'll be wondering how to express. So these are some of the things. Okay, so this is Agata and some of her children at the martial arts gym. Okay, so, you know, when you are doing certain activities and you're really focused on them, it makes it very difficult for you to hold on to certain worries and narratives. And then after the activity, you can go back and then explore. Okay, so there are 2 E's involved in gaining happiness that we're going to share with you today. The first one has been explore, and the second one has been express. If you do both of them in an iterative way, consciously, then very soon you're going to expand your window of tolerance and find yourself in a much happier place. But of course, healing takes time. So even if you're taking our approach, you're going to have to also follow all the other things here, having more rest, more self-care, more letting go, being more honest about how you feel, having more faith in yourself in the process. And over time, you are going to develop healthier coping mechanisms that will lead to better mental and physical outcomes. Right, so that's all that we have today, and we're going to hand the time over to Tanisha for the Q&A segment.
Thank you. We've taken the liberty to put forward some audience questions to our panelists on the session theme. The first question is to you, Agata. Unmet needs and quality of life are important issues for families who live closely, sometimes as caregivers for the vulnerable. Because members have close interactions in the family system, the impact of the intra and interpersonal mechanisms clubbed with individual unmet needs is hugely stressful for some. How do you see a way around it in such clustered environments?
Well, my family is quite big, so we have a rather clustered environment at home, I would say. There are 7 people in our household. Yes, our needs indeed clash sometimes. What's most important I would like to share is that we really need to become aware of how we feel, because this is how we find out what we need. And then we take responsibility to satisfy our needs first. And only after we have done everything to find out about our needs, you know, we can either satisfy them right there, or make a plan to satisfy them later. We can be there for other people to actually support them as well, to find out about their needs, what kind of support they need from us, whether we can help or whether we can ask someone else to help. Because only then, when we know about what we need, we can actually have a conversation. We can actually talk about it, discuss how we can work it out together. Because when we don't know what we need, it's like it's just accusation, I guess. Well, I don't guess. I'm telling. It's just like everyone is going to be accusing, like, you are here, you are doing this, you are annoying me. The other one is going to say, you are annoying me. It's your fault that this is not working out and all that. So instead of having that kind of conversation, each person, or at least one of the people in this communication, needs to work it out, like what they need, And with the awareness of their needs, they can come to another person and be there for them, to help them to find out what they need. And then they can talk, like, what would be the best way to exist, coexist, exist together in a more peaceful and happy environment. That would be my answer.
Thank you, Agata. The second question is for you, Gwen. Psychological needs seem to be more likely to go to unmet than material ones. Our society, welfare systems, and services are better designed for material than psychological needs. How do you see existing state policies in this light? Any suggestions to policymakers?
Yes, definitely. So I actually think that many countries have already moved on from a state of completely neglecting psychological needs to actually taking them into consideration in their policy making. So for instance, currently Germany has a requirement for workplaces to prepare and submit intervention strategies for potential psychological threats at work. And in the UK, there's a recent law that has been passed that would make it mandatory for employees to be allowed the work from home option from day one. So these are all certain laws and policies that can safeguard the psychological needs of the people. But from my perspective, in my research, I believe that the best and the most effective way to build the society is from ground up, right? So the mental health literacy to me is my most important recommendation. And I believe that when you invest in mental health education, people can take care of themselves better. And so they stop doing, that kind of self-defeating policies. Stop doing self-defeating behaviors. They are less willing to blame others. And of course, when they know that they need support, in essence, like right now in Singapore, only 1 in 4 people with a psychological illness actually want to seek help, right? But mental health literacy will basically make it easier for an individual to even want to seek help from a professional. And it's just like dental intervention, right? Going to see a dentist. Many of us may be afraid of seeing a dentist because it's painful, but we still do it because we know it's good for us. So when we have mental health literacy in school, the younger generation, our kids onwards, they will start seeing going to see a psychologist or seeing a psychiatrist at certain more stressful points in their lives, right? As just a normal thing to do. Yeah, so just to sum up, okay, the first thing would be basically we need to, have psychologically informed policy making, which some countries are already doing. Second is mental health literacy. And of course, the last one that Agata and we discussed is very important, is to help people understand the effects of their media consumption, be it mainstream media or social media. Usually there are content there that actually harm our mental health. For instance, if you love watching horror movies and movies with a lot of violence and you do it every single day, over time it's going to develop exaggerated emotions in you. Likewise, if for example, in Singapore, we have an issue with the elderly exhibiting traits of like family violence, or they're getting very agitated. And some studies have shown that this has a lot to do with maybe the media that they consume, right? Some of them like to watch certain dramas from certain countries that portray people shouting all the time. So they start to shout as well. And it's like this strange change of behavior because of media consumption. And we're also aware of like social media consumption in the youth and how this has increased like a sense of inferiority, the FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, that has an impact on our mental health as well. So this is the third recommendation, right? Which is that we need to be aware of the risks involved in certain consumption of media and maybe limit the consumption if we really want to have a healthy mental health in our society. Thank you, Tanisha.
Thank you, Gwen. So we have a question from our audience by the name of Keor Mulla Rajni. So she asks how one can deal with it with it, find a solution for having anxiety issues built because of continuous failures in studies, also because of which physical health is affected and how to move forward in life. If anyone can answer this.
Gwen, could you answer this, please?
Okay, so how can you move on in life when you face anxiety or you face failures in your studies? I mean, I think this has to really go back to the domain of self, right? So if I actually show you the slide again, we go all the way back to the start. I just want you to pay attention to the recognizing of your self-worth. And we have to believe that we are always worthy, whether or not, we achieve our life goals. This is one of the very fundamental tenets of the model we have, the chat model, and today's chat conference, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, boys and girls who are watching here and your students. If you feel like if I don't succeed in my studies, I'm worthless, you need to question, is that true? Right? Is it true? Because you may not succeed at first, but if you are continuously tenacious, at some point you will succeed. So if you can choose two things, right? The first way is that you go through the process filled with a negative narrative, filled with self-doubt, or you can go through the process filled with self-worth. Which one do you think is healthier? Right? Obviously, the one where you're going through the process filled with self-worth. But if you are interested to find out more about how to cope with that mentality of failure, then stay on in today's webinar, because we have very interesting sharings in the last segment on Tenacious Caterpillar on how you can maintain that self-worth, maintain the tenacity to achieve your life goals. All right, so back to you, Tanisha.
Thank you so much, Gwen. So my next question is for Agata. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, in a 1943 paper titled The Theory of Human Motivation, discussed hierarchical stages of unmet needs, beginning with infants who aim to have only the most basic needs met. He said people reach different stages of this hierarchy throughout life, and at different times they might experience a deficit in a certain stage. When this occurs, a person will often temporarily abandon pursuit of a higher stage in order to have the more fundamental needs met. However, not all the adult human reaches the top of the hierarchy, and poverty, illness, and other factors can interfere with a person's development. What relevance do you attach to these thoughts in the present times?
Well, I believe that the hierarchy of needs is still relevant in present times, because before we can satisfy our most basic needs, before they are satisfied, we can't even think about anything else. However, now the concept of need has evolved, and our physical survival is not enough. We need to also satisfy the needs for love and belonging, need for power, for fun. And this is what makes our lives worth living in a way, because that is why we use William Glasser's model, which is based on choice theory, where it is said that everyone has a choice to make in regards to how they're going to satisfy their needs. And it also allows for flexibility. When we know what we need, we can consider different options, and we don't have to stick to only one way of satisfying our needs. So I would like to also ask Gwen to add more on the subject.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I would believe that definitely there is a hierarchy of need, but sometimes when people are facing certain mental health struggles, right, they get very fixated on one particular need, and if that is not resolved, according to choice theory, no matter at what stage in your life you're at, you're just going to feel so frustrated to the point of explosion. So all of you will know, right? Like, for instance, even if you're very wealthy, you see all these Hollywood stars, they are millionaires, but they can still have a psychological breakdown, right? They can still have a broken marriage because one of their needs are not being met. So I'm saying this to you because I don't want you guys to think that it is a valid thing to advise these people like sometimes we do, right? Hey, come on, you're so blessed. You already have so much money. You have a supportive family. Why are you still sad? You don't have the right to be depressed. Yeah, but if you think that, I think that kind of thinking stems from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That some needs are more important than others. And so I just want to say that's why at Charlie Caterpillar we choose William Glasser's needs, because they don't actually rank it in a hierarchy. They put them all side by side to say that if it's relevant to you at this moment, it is important, right? So don't dismiss it just because it's maybe something to do with self-actualization, something to do with purpose. Because if it's very important to you, for instance, to perhaps maybe pursue a certain purpose, like, you know, for myself and for all of you here, we are advocates for mental health. And this is very important to us. So imagine if our family members said, like, stop doing this, but it's going to hurt us on a very deep level, even if it's not something that we need to survive, right? So you need to know what is important to you. You need to know your needs profile, and you need to prioritize the needs that are relevant to you at the moment, no matter where they come in the hierarchy of needs.
I'd like to add also a little bit. So for example, even if we find ourselves not in a very good situation in terms of physiological needs satisfaction, when we also realize that there are other needs that need to be satisfied, like for example, need for love, need for appreciation, need for respect. If we work on satisfying these needs, we will be more motivated to get out of the other type of situation, you know, to satisfy other needs. So for example, I find myself without a job. I will not only look for a job in order to survive, but I will also look for people who can support me in my life. I will also try and give myself as much love and respect and support and understanding as I can, because only I can give to myself what I need, like 100%, exactly the way that I need it, right? So all these needs are my responsibility. To satisfy them is my responsibility. And when I have that, when I have love, when I feel love, when I feel respect for myself, when I feel worthy, when I feel confident, when I feel that I deserve to be here, I will be more likely to find a job. I will be more likely to be able to do more in life and to even support my family much better. So all needs are relevant, and as Gwen said, it's really important to understand what exactly is the most relevant need at this moment and work on satisfying this need first.
Thank you. I'll request our panelists to give their brief concluding notes for the second session. Agata, your concluding remarks, please.
Yeah, I'd like to conclude with the same message that I started with. It is our own responsibility to choose happiness over misery. And we have shared with you one tool that you can use on a regular basis. I really believe it's a life-changing tool when you acknowledge how you feel, what emotions you have at this particular moment. And thanks to that, you find out what needs you have, and then you do everything that you can in order to satisfy this need yourself. And of course, can ask for support from others, but the way to satisfy this need is not limited to one way. There are numerous ways of satisfying each need that we might have, and we need to be open to different ways, different strategies, different options to satisfy our needs. And it's our responsibility to actually satisfy our needs and be happy if we really want to be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Gwen, your concluding remarks, please.
All right. Yeah, I just want to keep the concluding remarks short so we can move on to the next segment. But you know, I think that many of us think that happiness is very elusive, right? You can't chase after happiness, and that's true. Because you know, nobody in this life can, you know, be void of negative emotions, and nobody in life can get everything that we want. This is an impossibility. So if you can acknowledge right now that, you know, this is not just happening to you, but every single human being, like 7 billion of us, experience this void, then the next best option is to think, how can I best utilize the information that my emotions are trying to convey to me so that I can have more of my needs met? Because ultimately, when you have more of your needs met, that means you're closer to becoming the 100% best version of yourself. And when you become that 100% best version of yourself, then you'll be more able to give out of that fullness to everyone around you. Yeah. So my concluding remark is that, I think women especially, we always think that we need to put others ahead of ourselves. But I hope that, you can just give yourself the permission to explore meeting your own needs first, and then express that desire, explain to your loved ones that I'm doing it for myself. But ultimately, do you know that the overflow that comes from it is going to come to you guys as well? So if we can basically convince everybody that it's good for the whole family, then we can all benefit from better mental health. Yes. Thank you, Tanisha.
Thank you. Thank you again. If you or someone you care about seems to have unmet needs or any of the potential risk factors for developing mental health conditions as adults, intervention is a good idea. Psychotherapists and other licensed mental health professionals are trained to use diagnostic criteria and a variety of therapies to help identify, uncover childhood events and issues that might be causing mental health problems in both adolescents and adults. Try reaching out for help today. Many thanks to Agata and Gwen to have spared time for this charity event and for having shared the expertise. Thank you, participants. A very warm welcome to all at a third session for today. This third session marks an affectionate caterpillar, highlighting the benefits of art therapy for good relationships, wherein experts will discuss benefits and use of this form of creative therapy that has gained momentum in recent times. Art therapy as an approach to health and well-being is now quite often described as a form of non-verbal communication with the potential to help individuals of all ages in the process of reparation and healing. Art therapists also propose that art therapy, facilitated by a professional art therapist, effectively supports personal and relational treatment goals. Let's discuss more on this unique subject with a panelist. We have with us Ms. Amanda Chen-Lee. A dear friend, Amanda is a certified and experienced art therapist, art educator, positive psychology coach, and soft pastel Nagomi art instructor. She has been active and current in the social work scene for the past decade and has worked with many charities and social enterprises like Red Pencil, Student Advisory Center, Pottery, Habitat for Humanity Singapore, and was the former Deputy Director of Social Creatives. She currently sits on the board as Honorary Secretary of the Rare Disorders Society of Singapore. Amanda is the founder and art therapist at Art for Good and believes that a lot of good can be done through art, especially in the healing and therapeutic aspects. We also have with us Ms. Sanjoli Sakhuja. Sanjoli has a distinguished background in psychology, BA and MA, and has completed her master's in art psychotherapy from Goldsmiths College, London. Her experience includes working with children, adolescents, adults, families on a variety of areas. These includes building self-expression, self-awareness, understanding relationships, building resilience, positive thinking, stress and anxiety management. She is passionate about using art therapy to promote overall well-being in individuals. I now invite our panelists to give their theme addresses. Amanda, your address, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's morning and evening for some of you in different parts of the world. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being with us today. So today I am honored to be presenting on art therapy and how to improve relationships with fellow art therapist Sanjoli from India. And we will be co-presenting today's chat conference on the affectionate caterpillar. Okay, so we will be talking about art therapy and how to improve relationships. So thank you, Tanisha, for introducing us. So we will skip the introductions about me and Sanjoli, but I will talk a little bit about the organization that I'm from, which is Art for Good. So Art for Good is a social enterprise that creates art programs to help different communities. So we use art in different ways to help different communities, not just art therapy, but sometimes it's community art projects, sometimes it's art enrichment programs. So we create good through art making of children, providing art programs to those in need. So we help children from low-income families, children with special needs, rare disorders, and behavioral problems. And if you would like to find out more about this organization, you can go to www.artforgood.sg if you would like to volunteer time or help by using art in your creativity. Okay, so I will hand over this portion about art therapy to Sanjoli, who will give us a little bit of insight on art therapy. So Sanjoli, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you,
Okay.
Amanda. Thank you, Amanda and Tanisha. Welcome, everyone. So I'm really honored to be here and just going to talk you through a little bit about art therapy, its application and uses. So what is art psychotherapy? A lot of people wonder, what art therapy is, and they feel it's a lot about, drawing and, the therapist is going to assess what you make. So it's more of a intervention that uses art as a means of communication and expression. And sometimes we're unable to put our thoughts and feelings into words, and we're able to express it non-verbally through art material. So that can be paints, it can be clay, it can be, anything, any recycled material as well. A lot of people are using leaves and natural materials that are available in their environment. So it's very creative, and it's very non-directive in the sense that, it's up to the client how to use the space. And it's all client-led. It helps in understanding what's going on in their mind, how they're expressing using the materials. We can move on to the next slide, Amanda. So there are a lot of approaches to using art therapy. So, and it can be applied depending on the situation. So art as therapy uses art activities as a process towards healing and clearing your mind. So these can be particular theme-based work, such as work on self-expression or self-esteem, confidence, and relationships. And then we have art psychotherapy, which is more of a intervention that uses art as a vehicle for symbolic communication. And the combination of both can be used with a variety of clients. It's all based on their skills and abilities. We can move on to the next one, Amanda. So as I mentioned before, a lot of people get confused between an art class and art therapy. So just to clarify this to the audience, an art therapy is facilitated by a trained art therapist. That means an art therapist who has a qualified master's in art therapy, and an art class is facilitated by an art teacher. The main goal in art therapy is self-expression, whereas in an art class, it's to make something. In art psychotherapy, there's no right or wrong way to make things, whereas in an art class, there are certain techniques and right way to do things. In art therapy, the focus is more on the process of engaging with the materials. So, even if a client makes something messy or makes a scribble, that's all right. It doesn't have to be right. Whereas in an art class, it's more about the end product and how it looks aesthetically. In art therapy, it's more about the artwork is more as a means of reflection. So through the artwork, you will try to understand what the client is projecting onto the art materials, what they're communicating through the artwork. Whereas in an art class, the art product is an evaluation of a certain art skill. We can move to the next. So broadly, art therapy targets a lot of areas. So I'm just going to run through them. So the first is creative self-expression. So what that means is it's a way to express using creative medium. So any art materials that we use. It also helps express those thoughts and feelings that are difficult to put into words. Art therapy also targets those emotions that that are bottled up and you cannot express. It improves self-awareness and insight. It helps in promoting creativity and imagination because we use a variety of materials. So like I said, we can use clay, paint, recycled materials, natural materials, stones, and even your own body. It enhances social skills and understanding of relationships through understanding yourself and having an awareness about your thoughts and feelings. It works on emotional regulation. It helps to manage difficult emotions and improves overall well-being and mood. It also helps to manage anxiety and stress. So these are some benefits of art therapy. It helps to promote self-awareness and insight. So you get a better understanding about your own thoughts and feelings. Maybe you're not able to express them using words, and you're able to understand it through the art making process. Through that, you were able to enhance social skills. You're able to understand how you're presenting in social interactions and how you can react in social interactions. It also improves self-esteem. It helps to explore creativity and imagination and manage stress. You can move on to the next one.
Okay,
So
thank you, Sanjoli, for the insights to art therapy and how it actually works. So I'll explain to you what this art therapy triangular relationship is about. So we need these three components, the art, the client, as well as the therapist, for it to be considered art therapy. So your coloring books at home or doing art alone at home, it can be therapeutic, but it is not termed as art therapy or art psychotherapy. So if we look at this triangle, if I remove art, then it's just the client and the therapist doing therapy work. And if I remove the client, then it's just the art and the therapist, and they're just doing some kind of reflective artwork or art by themselves. If I remove the therapist from this equation, then it's just the client and the art that's being engaged. So then that really doesn't equate to art therapy. So that's actually why having an art therapist in your art therapy session makes it art therapy session. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit on art, mental health, and you, and perhaps leave you with some tips and strategies that you can actually use art to help improve your mental health and well-being, as well as your relationships. So art therapy in mental health, of course, we have some influence by Freud, because this is still a mental health profession. It's just a different type of mental health profession, but we use art. So from the beginning, Freud's focus was on mental health. He also did a very interesting study using artists, and very famous artists or great artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and realized that there were mental disorders which is linked to which you can actually see in the art making, and is linked to mental disorders. So that analysis has been done, and there's actually quite interesting materials out there which you can actually look at if you're quite interested in this topic. So since today is Mental Health Day, here are some fast facts regarding mental health from World Health Organization, where 1 in 4 people in the world are affected by some kind of mental or neurological issues at some point in their lives. About 450 million people suffer from such mental disorders, and is one of the leading causes of ill health and disability. And nearly 2/3 of people with a known mental disorder never seek help from a health professional. So stigma, discrimination, and neglect are one of the top reasons why people don't actually receive the mental health care that they need. But today, we hope that since we present art therapy to you, that this could be a non-invasive way or a different way that you could actually explore to receive maybe a more creative or artistic approach and work through your mental health issues. So how art therapy and art making can improve relationships? I think when you actually create something together with someone, you are definitely building a bond. So you are co-creators when you come together and make art together. And that's actually why that therapeutic bond can be built quite quickly and quite fast. It's because we create art together. And that creation process is always non-invasive, it's fun, and definitely it helps to build that relationship. So even if you're not creating together with an art therapist, if let's say you create together with a child or together with a spouse, once you start creating something together, you are building that time together, you're building that relationship together, and that can definitely always help to improve relationships. One of the other ways is that we often do this as children, and sometimes when we grow older, we forget that actually making art or a handmade gift for a loved one or someone special can actually help improve relationships. And that the person actually knows that you've taken the time, you've thought of them, and that you've actually made something for them. So the third one is that improving relationships for yourself. That means it builds self-confidence. That means now you're more confident to bring something that you've made, art that you've made to somebody else. This is actually really important for children, that you encourage them, you give them that motivation, you want to build them up. So of course, art making, especially when you've made something beautiful and you're so excited to show it off, will actually attribute to self-confidence. The fourth one we're going to talk about is emotion regulation. So art is actually very deeply connected with emotions. So how you feel when you look at a piece of art, you can actually feel that emotion sometimes from that piece. So we are actually kind of putting that emotions into our art making. So that's our way of kind of expressing ourselves and regulating our emotions. So instead of, sometimes when you have certain outbursts, you have certain stresses, frustrations, you're taking it out of people or things. Maybe if you use art to kind of express that, that would probably be more constructive, and that can actually help to improve their relationships. Also, art making is actually very calming, very therapeutic. So when you actually engage in that process for yourself, you can help calm yourself down, especially in difficult situations. So emotion regulation is highly tied to art making as well as to art therapy. The fifth point I'll talk about is on self-love. That means you're taking this time out for yourself to make something. That means this is time for yourself. So in a way, it can be some kind of self-love, especially when you're working on yourself through such mental health issues or difficulties. You're taking time to spend on yourself and to love yourself. And of course, we're talking about healing and self-development. So these things definitely come into play, especially when you want to engage in art therapy or the art making process to improve yourself and to improve relationships. Okay, so I'll leave you with 3 tips on 3 ways to use art for self-care. So studies have shown that expressing yourself through art can help us with, mental issues, mental problems, and difficulties. So art making has been linked to improved memory, reasoning, really, really good benefits. So it's more than what is actually on the slide. But these 3 tips that we hope that we can leave behind to help you is that you can actually seek art therapy support as an alternative mental health support. Yeah. So the first step is acknowledging and seeking professional help is the first step to recovery. That means you recognize that this is something that you want to do or take care of. So this is your first step towards taking care of your mental health, is in recognizing that maybe you need some professional help, and that there are different solutions that are out there that you can explore, and that you can actually select art therapy as one of those solutions, especially if you like art. So it's non-invasive, it's creative, and it's fun. And you also find out a lot more about yourself through this whole art process. So you also don't need to be some kind of artist or have artistic abilities to partake in art therapy. It's really about being creative and really about finding different ideas and thoughts and process of reflection. One other way to create art, one other way for art for self-care is to create art at home. So it's something that maybe you have forgotten that you enjoyed. Maybe it's time to revisit this as a possible self-care, especially with this pandemic. You're stuck at home. Maybe you can do some art making for yourself. So the last one is to join an art class. So there's actually a lot of different art forms out there, and there's also a lot of free online classes, paid online classes. It depends where your interest is. So once you start developing based on your interests and you start making art, it's actually really good for your physical and mental well-being. It can be anything. It can be lettering, watercolor, clay. It also teaches you what kind of artist you are. So not everyone's going to be a sculptor. Not everyone's going to be a fine art artist. So it's also about a process of self-discovery for yourself. So these are just 3 ways that we'll leave you with. And yeah, let's make some art, yeah? Okay, over to you, Tanisha. I understand your questions.
Thank you so much. I request our panelists to take up some audience questions on the session theme, which we have received on live platforms. The first question is for you, Amanda. How the art's psychotherapeutic relationship differs from other relationships involving art making for therapeutic outcome? Is there any advanced understanding of the integration of art making with principles of psychotherapy that is easily palpable?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, so we're talking about relationships, right? So how is the art psychotherapy relationship different from other relationships involving art therapy for therapeutic outcomes? I think the major difference is that when you actually go for art therapy, there's actually an art therapist there. And of course, like other therapeutic or counseling professions or therapies, you are actually looking at the relationship that you build with your therapist and counselor. So sometimes you also need to go shopping for your counselor or therapist because like other human relationships, some people gel and some people don't. So it's really about finding what's the right therapy or the right therapist for you. So of course, the difference between other psychotherapies and art therapies that there is also an added relationship to art. So there's an added vehicle, an added tool, where there's also an analysis of art and how the art making process is being done. So of course, sometimes when you go, for example, counseling or talk therapy or coaching, you are made to express yourself verbally. And sometimes when words are actually not enough, people get stuck. So then it becomes very difficult to kind of fully express yourself, especially if there are difficulties. So that's where the different elements in the art therapy relationship will come in, that the art can actually be, for example, a vehicle or bridge, or something that's a little bit more palatable and easier to approach with that art element in place. That means when you come into that therapy session and you really don't know what to say, you really don't know what to start, you can actually do some art making, and sometimes it warms you up. Sometimes you can see things in art, sometimes you're expressing things in art. So there's it's a more interesting, and it's also that added layer when you actually approach the therapy session, when you have art included in that process.
Thank you, Amanda. The second question is for you, Sanjoli. Art, surely, if interconnected with dynamic processes, can create an interwoven choreography that can positively transform the quality of relationship. One concern is the engagement in the process of repetitivity and mutuality, as often participants start working in disconnected way. What are your suggestions for increasing productivity of such joint sessions?
Thank you for the question, Tanisha. So just adding on to what Amanda also said. So in an art therapy session, there's an added layer of art, the art medium. And I think that's where that's what connects the participants in terms of, working on relationships. So if they're not able to work through that in, verbally, they might be able to do it through the art making process. So whether it's working on a project together or working on a particular piece of art together, and even in that, navigating spaces, navigating who's taking the decisions, who's taking the choices of colors to use, and what are they going to make the theme to work around. So I think, just picking up on what's going on in the session as a therapist, I would facilitate, the areas that need to be worked on. So, through the art medium. So, sometimes it's just like, again, Amanda said, it's non-threatening, it's non-invasive. So it just becomes an easier way to, address your concerns and issues.
Thank you, Sanjoli. The next one for you, Amanda. Art therapy by electronic means is a continuously evolving application of art therapy. Are there any ethical ramifications of providing art therapy services via the internet, telepathy, or other electronic means? You see a future in this virtual realm?
Yes, I do, especially with this whole COVID scene, this whole pandemic going on. A lot of these things have been brought onto Zoom. So definitely is something that we need to kind of address, and something that will happen in future. I think one of the things we need to look at is the suitability of the clients attending the art therapy sessions over Zoom, because, for example, if you work with persons with disabilities or special needs, they might not be able to sit in a Zoom session unassisted. And once you have your caretaker, a parent in that session, then certain ethical issues will come into play, whether or not they are sharing everything that they can or they want to, because there's a presence of somebody that they may or may not want in that session. So of course, there is also the topic on ability. That means, can they actually sit in front of the Zoom session and be with you for that hour for you to actually really be able to help them? So of course, if, let's say, all the criteria is met in terms of they are able to sit in front of Zoom, be able to reflect and process with you, be able to show you some of the art that they've created, I still feel that for Zoom, you still need to be somewhat verbally competent, of which that will be required for Zoom, and that element where it actually helps people who are nonverbal will be lost because of this electronic transfer. So what are the ethical ramifications is that, for example, if we're providing a group session and we want this to be a safe place, how are we curating the people that are coming in? What's the security like for people that are actually coming in, conducting the session? Are they putting the cameras on and off? Are they recording the session secretly? Things like that. These are definitely ethical considerations that we need to think about when we go online or electronic. I think not just for art therapy, but for other therapeutic counseling practices as well. That's definitely a concern. So while we have been able to do some art therapy sessions online, let's say certain criteria is met, certain ethical considerations are addressed, it is still possible to work with maybe adults, teenagers, young adults, those people who are able to attend a Zoom meeting independently and who want to attend the session really as well. Because sometimes when it comes to therapy and counseling, especially for children, they're forced to actually come and attend these sessions, and they really don't want to. So if you really force them and put them in front of the screen, there's actually going to be not a good experience for them. So ultimately, we hope that therapy can be a good experience where you can feel safe and comfortable and work through difficulties. So the question would definitely be, can this electronic space be a safe space to actually conduct therapies? So I guess this is still kind of debatable. And it's really how creative you want to be with the resources that you have and what you want to do with the resources that you have.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you all. I'll request our panelists to give their brief concluding notes for this third session. Sanjoli, your concluding remarks, please.
So just to conclude, I think the idea of art therapy is that there are three things involved: the client therapist and the artwork. And I think in terms of relationships, when you're not able to work through conflicts verbally or using other methods, sometimes the art does come in and you can work on projects together and resolve that conflict. So I would urge people to try art therapy. As it can be uncomfortable to start with, to understand how to use the materials in a way that you're not judged on your artwork. But you will totally, once you engage in the process, it's very creative and very therapeutic. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda, your concluding remarks, please.
Yes, so thank you everyone for having us and allowing us to share about art therapy. It is still quite a new and niche thing that has actually come out over the last 10 to 15 years. So people are still trying to get to know it. And I think that this opportunity to share about it, to provide this to you as an option, we're definitely grateful for that. And we do want to use art to change the world. So thank you so much for coming and for your support.
Thank you all again. As understood, the skill of attunement is where the real transformative moment emerges and flourishes, and where the art psychotherapeutic relationship has the potential to make a measurable difference in your lives. Many, many thanks to Amanda and Sanjoli to have spared the time, especially on a relaxing Sunday for this open event, and for having shared their thoughts on what they believe in. Thank you, participants. Coming to the end, we now begin with the final scheduled session for the CHAT Global Mental Health Conference 2021. The fourth session amplifies the tenacious caterpillar, focusing on the soul quality displayed by someone who just won't quit, that is commonly referred to as tenacity. Odds are the people you admire have shown real tenacity in achieving their goals. Anything really worth doing takes persistence, perseverance, and stubborn determination. Put simply, tenacity is that fierce blend of determination, persistence, and grit. For leaders and their organizations, it's the trait that means the difference between failure and success, and that makes their teams from doing all right to thriving. For having a thoughtful discussion on this qualitative subject, we have with us Mr. Daryl Lim. Daryl is a published author, entrepreneur, certified life coach, consultant, profiler, and international speaker. Daryl, with his straight shooting perspective on leadership challenges, his followers and clients to make success their responsibility and step out of the unworkable and outdated definitions formed by poor mindsets and the limitations it brings. We also have with us Ms. Aayushi Chaturvedi. Aayushi is a mental health practitioner across 2 continents, behavioral research across the domains of education, healthcare, and technology. Aayushi shares her experience on building tenacity with grit from the grassroots of India. A poised and a fine human being, she works with empathy on tasks aimed at achieving better mental health. I now invite our panelists to give their theme addresses. Daryl, your address, please.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Share my screen. Okay, very good afternoon, everyone. Now, I've had the honor of presenting the most abstract part of chat, which is tenacity. All right. Short of being a lecture, I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So, I mean, if you guys are not sitting at home comfortably in your underwear and you're decent, you can try to switch on your cameras and we'll try to play a little game, right? As I bring you through the journey of how to build up tenacity. Now, tenacity is, you can Google it, right? It's defined as the ability or the grit, right? As Tanisha said earlier on how long you can hold on in the face of challenge and adversity in order to achieve your goals, right? So that we're on the same page. Now, let's start with the riddle. Can anyone tell me what is the link between the picture on the left and the picture on the right? Now, I can see in the gallery view, some of you are smiling. Some of you actually look very confused. Now, to those who are smiling, you have just betrayed how old you are. And to those who are confused, let me enlighten you a little bit. On the left of the screen, you see something called a cassette tape. And on the right, you have a pencil. Now, in the past, when we wanted to build a mixtape, right, in today's language, it's called a playlist, we couldn't simply drag and drop. Now, I see a lot of people smiling and laughing, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. How hard it is to build a mixtape where you have to sit by the radio, wait for your song to come on, press record, make sure you don't overlap the previous song, right? And when you take your cassette out of the player, you have to use your pencil to do this, because every single cassette player does not know how to rewind correctly. Okay, I see a lot of smiles and laughter now. Okay, so you guys know what I'm talking about. That, my friends, is the very basic concept of tenacity, where when I was younger, in order to achieve that mixtape that I wanted, all my favorite songs in it, I was willing to go through the pain and hassle of recording every song that I want onto that one cassette and make sure that every song was lined up the way I wanted. So it's no secret. Again, like I say, anyone can Google it. Tenacity, it's a somewhat three-step process in a very simplified way, where you get feedback and then you struggle. And after you struggle, if you don't break through, you go back for more feedback, then you struggle some more. But eventually, if you struggle enough and you have enough tenacity, you will end up being successful, where you break through in a very small form of success and you try to get that one step closer to your goal. Now, this is a common concept that everyone knows about, but there's a secret sauce to it that I'll share. Before we do that, who knows this? Who knows how to convert ounce to milliliters? Don't cheat. Don't use Google. Who knows what is the capital of Brazil? If you have access to the chat, you want to type it in, go ahead. If someone puts Rio, you're wrong, it's actually Brasilia, right? And since you guys know what a cassette tape is, I'm sure every single one of you have watched the Star Wars trilogy. How many of you know the actor that played Jar Jar Binks? Okay, a lot of confused looks, all right? Because the young generation today will never know what it's like to be in a conversation and say, yeah, who played Jar Jar Binks? Who was the actor in that movie? Who was the main star in the recent hit comedy? Or how do I convert ounce to milliliters? When we were younger in school, our teachers forced us to learn this. And if you talk to any teacher today, if you ask them to make their students memorize the capitals of the world, the common reply every student will ask is, why? I could simply Google it. Why do I need to know? Right? That, my friends, is the core. It's the whole basis of why we are having a tenacity crisis today. Right? Don't worry, this is not a teach a man to fish kind of quote. Right? I would like to share this quote with you. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood and divide the work. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast endless sea. That, my friends, is why. If you teach a student, a young learner, or someone who is interested to pursue their goals, if you show them why, that forms the foundation of the entire process to build up tenacity. Because without purpose, without knowing why, this entire windmill or this entire cycle will simply crumble. Now, being as abstract as this theory is, let me show you a real life example. Now, how many of you ever learned a bicycle and this ever happened to you? All right. This is not someone I know, it's just something I picked up, so don't worry, I'm sure the boy is fine. But my son, who was 6 years old, and I tried to teach him to ride a bicycle, he kept doing this. And he gave up naturally because it was painful, it was frightening, and honestly, he didn't see the reason why. But when I told him, if you don't ride this bicycle, we cannot go cycle as a family. You have to do your four-wheeler and we have to walk beside you. He started to persevere. He started to find the reason why. But it doesn't just apply to the person learning. This would be me, figuratively, of course. From my point of view, teaching the kid to ride, and naturally, I want to throw him off the river because he couldn't learn. Tenacity lies in every single one of us. Like I said, it was an abstract concept. The learner has to be tenacious enough, but yes, the person teaching needs to have the tenacity to continue to persevere and to believe. No points for guessing why I wanted to teach him and why I didn't want to do this to him. Right? But rest assured, this is my son today, or when he first did it. And let me tell you, they say the proudest moment is when you see your child walk, run into your arm. In my experience, my proudest moment was to be able to convince him to endure the pain and to achieve this right in front of my eye. Having said that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Daryl. Aayushi, your address, please.
Thank you so much. Just coming after Daryl on that presentation, it's going to be tough. But thank you so much for having me here. So when I say tenacity, I am going to translate it into a Sanskrit word, which actually means dranta, and it actually means to stay still. In the most difficult time of your lives, how do you stay still? That's what it means. That's what tenacity is. You can imagine the nature around us. You can imagine the trees that stand still in the midst of cyclones and earthquakes. You can think about the minerals that we find who have kind of been exposed to so many million years of sunlight or water or different kind of ecosystems, but they still retain their values. That's what tenacity is, when you kind of retain your value in the most difficult situations and environments that you are in. If you look at a systemic level, when you talk about education nowadays, it's very much focused on just completing the curriculum. Let the child just learn whatever needs to be learned and then just get out of it. We are not making the children in our classrooms tenacious enough. We are not making them think about what really learning is all about. When you look at the organizational level in companies across, we are talking about KPIs, the KRAs, and you need to kind of achieve those minimum performance indicators every day instead of the larger, skill sets that your employees are learning. I'll give an example of an Indian organization, Tata, which would be very famous even in Singapore as well. They actually give performance appraisals based on the skill sets that their employees actually learn in a particular year. And they are working on creating those tenacious skill sets amongst their employees. And that's why today, even after so many hundreds of years, they are still sustaining across the world, and they still continue to grow. Those are examples of tenacious organizations that are there, and we need to learn from them. Now I'm going to talk from an individual perspective, my own perspective. I grew up in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. I was growing up and I kind of experienced a lot of different changes in my lifestyle growing up. I was kind of having a great time growing old, and then the 2008 financial crisis happened. A lot of things changed, and there was a question in my mind: why me? Why do I have to adjust to these environment and this kind of environment that's come in? And I think one person who kind of helped me out in that particular situation was my brother, and he told me that you need to stop playing the victim here. You need to start taking charge of your own environment and grow. And you need to take charge and take control and learn new things. And that's what tenacity is. It's like you kind of take it up, take charge of your life, focus on the values that you want to generate in your life, and then take it on. And I want to kind of bring it back to the current generation. I think Gwendolyn talks about, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. We kind of keep thinking about self-pity, like, come on, why me? Why am I experiencing all of these things? We need to start thinking differently and say, why not me, right? Like, why is it actually helping me out and grow a little bit more? Or just, we kind of tend to give up very, very easily. So we need to start thinking differently and say that, why not me? And let's try and grow myself every day. The second thing that we all generally do is compare ourselves, right? Instagram has become the most valid way of figuring out if you're likable enough or no. And that's the feedback that people think about, right? Those likes, those love, those comments that you get, that's the feedback, not really. The feedback needs to be towards improvement. Daryl talks about feedback. I want to say feedback towards your improvement, That's important. Are we open to getting that feedback to improve ourselves or no? I think that's really important when you're talking about building tenacity. And of course, mental strength. We all go work in the gym. We kind of have our nutritionist diet to build our physical strength. What about our mental strength? What is it that we are doing every day to kind of grow our mental strength? That's the focus that we all need to have. And towards that, I'm just going to share maybe like 2 to 3 strategies to build your tenacity every day in your life. First is take risks. Get a chance to do something new altogether and, just take risks and grow. Second thing is release yourself from judgments. What people say doesn't matter. Don't judge yourself as well. What's in your mind is in your control. So, stop judging yourself. That's the second point I would like to leave behind. The third would be, you need to reclaim your innocence. We all kind of go with that fact that, we know it all, we've experienced it all, we've, kind of just don't have the capacity to learn anything new. Go back to that innocent stage in your life where you were curious about everything. I think, just looking at kids around us, we can sense that, curiosity every now and then. So kind of build that thing again. And of course, accept and love yourself the way you are. We all are imperfect in a lot of different ways that we are in. Just accept and just love yourself. So that's the last message I would like to give away.
Thank you so much, Aayushi. So we have some questions from the live audience for our panelists that will request them to answer. The first question is for you, Daryl. Do you think we have lost the virtue of tenacity in general in our culture compared to prior generations? Aayushi, any thoughts on the Indian perspective to it after Daryl answers it?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think, in my opinion, tenacity is never lost. It is mainly a limitation of the capacity of tenacity that a person has. Again, it's a very abstract concept, but you got to think of it like a glass. The bigger your glass, the more tenacity you have. The smaller your glass, the less you have. Now, like I said, in the past, we had to really struggle. And it's that struggle, that process of struggling that makes us grow that capacity to be more tenacious, so that whenever we take on a challenge, if a new challenge comes, we're like, yeah, I did the last one before. Let's see how I can take this challenge on. Today, like I mentioned earlier, the young generation will never understand what it's like to not know your favorite the actor that played this role in the movie, and you have to go home not knowing until someone says it, right? Or you have to go and dig it out. Everything is, you can Google. Even and anything is ask Google, right? So the shortcuts that they take, the instant gratification that they enjoy, these are little things that limit the growth, our ability to grow our tenacity. So to answer that question, we haven't lost it. We just haven't developed the capacity yet.
Thank you, Daryl. Aayushi, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, to be honest. Like when you go down to, the remotest of locations in India, okay, I live in Mumbai, and I have interacted with a lot of people in Dharavi, which is the largest slum in Asia. And I was talking to this young girl who runs this school called Sakhi. Her name is Aarti Naik. And I must say that she is one of the tenacious women or girls I have seen, I have interacted with in my life. She is tenacious enough. She dropped out from her school when she was just, a few years old because of the financial reasons that were there that she was experiencing. And she started off learning on her own as she grew old. She started to save money on her own to kind of, educate herself. It's not something that you experience in your everyday life. But yeah, there are tenacious people out there who are trying to kind of learn on their own, grow based on the values that they want to follow. Through Sakhi, Aarti is actually educating over 300 girls today in the slum communities. This is like a great example to say that, yes, tenacity is not there in a lot of different setups, but they are there in a lot of different setups, which are kind of forces you because of certain kind of discrimination or scarcity. It becomes your survival mechanism. Without tenacity, you cannot survive those adverse situations that you are in. And I think Aarti, in her own space, has developed that tenacity because of the adverse experiences she's had. So at my end, I have seen a lot of people showcasing tenacity, but it's because of the kind of adverse environments or ecosystem that they have been in.
Thank you, Aayushi. The second question is for you, Aayushi. Tenacity moves us to consider objections to our very own views about morality, politics, and religion, and work through them until we are satisfied that we have a sound reply. Are there any negative connotations attached with the tenacity?
Of course, I think we all live in the world of misinformation, and we all kind of start believing in those viewpoints because we've invested so much time towards it. Like we say that tenacity includes persistence. It means perseverance. When it kind of gets negative is when you follow certain things without understanding what's the other side of it. We keep persevering, we keep focusing on that one thought that we believe is correct, and then we put in all our energies and all our intentions towards it. But at some point of time, you need to understand, is there another reasonable logic out there which kind of explains a lot of different things? We are in a world of misinformation. We need to understand if our tenacity that we are building is towards that misinformation or its actual reasoning or logic that we are running behind. Another point that I would like to talk about in behavioral science, we call something called sunk cost fallacy, right? It's very known in the world of behavioral finance. If you are an investor, you would have this experience where you have invested in a particular share, and then you keep putting in money thinking that you'll revive your investment and you'll get your returns at the end of the day. You keep putting in money and losing in money. You can still call it tenacity, that like you keep investing in that particular stock, but it's not going to give you the returns that you expect. So of course you need to kind of look at the downside of it, as well as the the strength that it gives you in certain situations. But at some point of time, you also need to look at the logic behind it. And you need to look at the other different reasonable explanations that might also be there. And I'm going to leave behind with what Winston Churchill said, that, never give up until you actually find another logical reasoning to another thought, right? So that's the last message that I'll leave.
Thank you, Aayushi. The next one again for you, Daryl. The journey to a healthy headscape is not conscious effort and apparently does not of character and stability of mind in this journey.
Well, to answer that question, there are a few parts to that. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to first define what is character. Because character can mean different things to different people. In my opinion, character is the willingness for a person to stick to their beliefs, stick to their values, stick to their identity. Right. So if you are asking how important the strength of character is, which is how strong or how stuck I am believing in my beliefs, believing in my identity, believing in my values, and I use that as my compass to guide me through my day-to-day in my effort to achieve my objectives, then yes, it's extremely important to be able to do that, because like she said, we are in a world of misinformation, but we are also in a world of great exposure. Okay, in the past, when I was younger, if you wanted to do a business, you just had to satisfy your parents, your closest friends, and maybe one or two clients. Today, you got to satisfy your followers, you got to satisfy your acquaintances, you got to satisfy your first, second, third degree friends on LinkedIn, basically seek their opinion or in phantom their approval, right? And you take that against a backdrop where you have a smaller capacity for tenacity, then yes, the strength of a character is extremely important. Now, will you survive your journey? That really relies entirely on how stable your mind is. I've seen people go nuts because they gave up an opportunity just because their friends said it was a crazy thing to do, and then they regret it later on. Or you see today's successful billionaires, who like Jack Ma, who said, okay, retail will never go online, and then today he's one of the richest men and also probably one of the most hunted men in China. Right? So on that note, yes, strength of character is important, but stability of mind is critical if you want to finish your journey.
Thank you, Daryl. We'll wait for Aayushi to join back. Her computer, it was unstable. Just for 2 minutes. Daryl, if you can take this question, meantime.
Sure.
Yeah. So faith is a thing unseen but becomes a source of light in the utter darkness. When all else fails, faith remains to sustain oneself. A steadfast faith is said to be the key to mental tenacity. How is it possible that faith gets stronger as we get weaker? Is there a natural phenomena at play?
Well, there definitely is a natural phenomenon at play, because when it comes to facing adversity, or when you face challenges along your journey to your goals, you naturally feel very helpless. You naturally feel very beat down, and you naturally feel, in your terms, weaker. Right? You feel like maybe it's not worth doing it, or you just don't have the strength to carry on. And yes, faith is that kind of virtue that stays in a person, to make him want to hang on to that belief, to make him want to hang on to that goal, to give him that confidence to say, yes, I believe that this is going to happen. I believe that I'm capable and I deserve my goals. Therefore, I'm going to stick it out, and therefore, I'm going to hold and stand my ground. So faith is key to mental tenacity. It is, because if you lack the belief, and it stems from the why, if you don't even believe in the why, there's no reason why you will have the strength to finish the journey. And the journey just gets harder and harder as the goals get higher and higher, or as you get older and older. Ashi's back.
Thank you, Daryl. So Aayushi, please take this one. When you recognize that you only have 24 hours a day and your energy has its limit, but you wish to make the most of your life, what is the most valuable advice on one would need?
Hi, sorry. Technical difficulties, you say. So yeah, in a 24-hour setup as well, you're going to have these kind of technical difficulties in your life as well. I think one of the things that I would kind of leave behind for everyone to remember is that, you have certain values with which you kind of live, right? I think in the previous panels, we've been talking about something called core beliefs. We've been talking about something like needs, the basic needs that we want to have. For anyone who wants to live with tenacity, I would say that, focus on those values that you have and try to time box your entire 24 hours around those values that you want to generate, right? For me, I think the two values that I run for and, I work towards is, of course, learning something new every day. And the second thing would be to find different platforms on which you can talk about the unheard voices that are around you, right? So for me, these are the two important values that I run for. And in those 24 hours, I would definitely find 2 to 3 hours each doing just that. So I would say focus on the values that you have and time box it around those 24 hours that you see yourself having.
Thank you, Aayushi. Thank you all. I'll request a panelist to give their brief concluding notes for the last session. Daryl, your concluding remarks, please.
So in conclusion, I'd like to leave the audience with some little tidbits. I'd like to address two different groups of people. The first would be the youth in our audience, the youngsters, right? When it comes to tenacity, there's just two more things on top of why. And that is, the first one is the process is far more important than the outcome. Trust in the process, and you will reach your outcome. The second thing is try, and try. Just keep trying, because your capacity for tenacity is directly linked to the number of tries you have in you. So try as much as you can and try as many times as you can. And to the second group would be to the parents who have children or have the question, how do I help make my kids more tenacious? Or how do I build this character of tenacity in them? And I have another two tidbits for that group. The first is expose your children to the arts. Second one is to also encourage them to pick up sports. Why these two areas? Right? Because in arts and in sports, there are no shortcuts. You either know how to do it or you don't. You either know how to draw a nice painting or you know how to kick a ball. There's no lying in that. There are no shortcuts in that. And the struggle that a child goes through to pick up those skills, to pick up that piano, to play that first song on the piano, or to play in his first competition in football, that struggle is the key to building his capacity in tenacity.
Thank you, Daryl. Aayushi, your concluding remarks, please.
Thank you so much. I want to leave behind with a conversation that I had with one of my patients way back, I think 3 to 4 years back. He was almost 70 years old, going through a lot of physical health concerns as well. And, it kind of revolved around conversations about what does he want to do in life? He's lonely, he's 70 years old, living in a retired home, been a government official for most of his life. And it was a conversation related to what does he do with his life going ahead. He's done so much and he just doesn't feel he's worth it anymore. And when we spoke and we discussed a lot about, what are his basic core beliefs, the needs, the values. These have been the conversations that we had. And at the age of 70, he started off with his own band, bandmates, which were like around his age. There was also an Elvis Presley, inspired band member of his that was there. And they kind of jammed throughout the day. They not only gave value to themselves, but they also gave values to others around them. And it kind of brought a lot of change for him in his life right till the end. The other person that I would like to talk about is Edith Eger. She is a survivor of the Holocaust, and she, in her book, The Choice, talks a lot about tenacity. She says that the biggest prison that we have is our own minds. And we need to take responsibility of our life and what goes into our mind as well. No one can take away what we put in our mind. And that's exactly what we all need to remember. What is it? What are the positive thoughts that you are giving to yourself when you're experiencing hardships and difficult situations? I think in the previous panel, the panelists spoke about the choice. The choice is ours, how we want to live, and what are the values that we want to follow and focus on as we go ahead. We all have got this, and it's just about one try at a time. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. As understood, ultimately in our own mind organizations, we must be persistent in our curiosity. We cannot give up or give in when we know something really matters. We must keep digging for the facts, the truth, especially in the face of adversity, but always focusing on our mental health. My sincerest gratitude to Aayushi and Daryl to have spare time for this live event and for having shared their thoughts on the subject. Thank you, participants. With this, we come to the end of Chat Global Conference 2021, celebrating World Mental Health Day. I'm touched that so many of you are here today. It is my sincere hope and personal commitment that this conference will be the first step of many we will make in order to achieve what we set out to do. A long common road to embracing issues, improved access to mental health care, and comforting psychological support for all ages. First steps are usually small, but they are significant. What do we do here today and tomorrow means something. To some, it may mean everything. Let's not forget that. And as we can read in every religious text, every person matters. Whoever helps a life helps the world. Let's go make that happen. Thank you, one and all. Have a great, great year ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Before we leave, let's take a picture to commemorate the event. So for those of you with your videos off and you want to turn on your videos, now's the time, okay? Thank you, Aayushi. Okay, what about the rest of you? Okay, otherwise, I'm just gonna take a picture right now. So can we just give, a smile? All right, I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had an enjoyable session, and thank you to all who shared. I have learned so much from all of you today. I'm already feeling a little bit more confident, happy, affectionate, and tenacious, It's like building up inside me, that emotional bank account. I hope that all of you feel the same way, and that tomorrow when we wake up, we just know that, we're not alone, but that there are all these people out there who have also learned, a little bit something useful. So when we come back next year for next year's Chat Global Conference, we look forward to sharing about and listening to maybe some of the stories from you guys, how you have implemented some of the tips that we have shared today, and also experienced a little bit of change in your mental states. Have a wonderful day ahead and see you soon. Bye-bye.